Hello, everybody, and welcome to Supergirl Gamer Pro. My name is Cora Georgiou, and I'm joined by Will Scarlett. We're going to be kicking things off here today for our Hearthstone tournament. And it looks like we've got a relatively good turnout. We've got a lot of spectators in the booth today, a lot of free play action going on here at this awesome festival. Now, this is the second year that I've been here, but the third year that Gamer Pro's been running. But Supergirl Surf Pro has been running for much, much longer than that. So it's a bit of an institution in these parts, Will.
Yeah, it's a really cool place to be. It's right on the beach. I'm literally looking to my right right now. I see a beautiful ocean. It's sunny California. You really can't get better than this between beautiful weather and Hearthstone.
I mean, I'm from Chicago, so I'm not quite used to having a sea breeze when I'm casting. But this is, yeah, it's a truly beautiful place to be. And Supergirl Surf Pro, of course, entirely about female empowerment, about extreme sports. We've got Supergirl winter sports as well for this yearly event that they have planned. So it's really an awesome thing that we're getting to now be a part of because they've added esports to the docket. And like I was saying, this is the third year that Supergirl Gamer Pro has been happening. Yesterday we had Super Smash Brothers. We had League of Legends. Today we're going to be having a CSGO show match between CLG Red and Team Dignitas, which is going to be fantastic. But before that, we've got our Hearthstone tournament running. And why don't you go ahead and break down format, what we're going to be doing here, basically.
Well, I have the pleasure of saying today is going to be Conquest. I haven't said that in quite some time. We've been on the specialist train for a little bit now, but now we get to play Conquest, which for those of you who don't remember, I will remind you, is everyone's going to bring 4 decks as opposed to the 1-class format that we have currently. So 4 classes, 4 decks, and one of those is going to be banned away by your opponent, and then you have to win a best of 5 with the remaining 3 decks. So you have to win with everything.
Yes, once you win with a deck, you can no longer play that deck. And the first player to win with all 3 of their decks will be the winner of the match. I believe we've got 6 players playing here today, so the 2 highest seeded players did receive buys automatically to the semifinals. So we're going to be playing through a couple matches very early on. I believe we're only going to be broadcasting a total of 3 matches on the day, though. So 1 quarterfinal match, 1 semifinal match, and of course our final match. And the winner of the day is going home with, what are they going home with, Will?
I believe they're going home with a laptop.
They're going home with a laptop. It's a pretty good prize for a
6-man tournament?
Yeah, 6-man tournament, 6-woman tournament.
Of course.
But of course, signups were open, but we were taking some people on the spot. It's just a really nice community-run effort to sort of empower women in the esports scene.
Absolutely.
Of course, as sort of an offshoot of this already incredible festival that has been doing so for so many years now.
Right, and Hearthstone's really led the charge, I think, in that regard, because you have so many women to look up to in the scene. You, of course, you have Pathra and Grandmasters. You just had Leon just qualify for BlizzCon out of China right now.
Yeah, fantastic.
And so you have just so many great competitors, so many people to look up to, and I think of all the esports, I think Hearthstone's definitely leading the charge in that regard.
Absolutely, and it's certainly been an effort that has improved over time, but I think part of the draw for Hearthstone is it is a card game in particular, and being digital, it is so much more accessible to anybody who may want to play. You know, for myself and a lot of other women growing up, it was, you know, we'd have to play with our brothers or with our dads, or you'd go to card shops and it would be just a bunch of guys playing games.
Yeah.
But now with Hearthstone, you don't have that sort of barrier to entry. You don't have that intimidation factor. And you can just pick up a game and start playing whenever, and then eventually you get to be quite good.
Right.
Suddenly you're going toe-to-toe. It adds that additional level of confidence, I would say. So we've got players of all different skill levels here today. I know in the past 2 years we've had some very, very good players who've managed to take home top prizes. So today I think we've got everything from some legend players, we've got some rank 5 players. We've got women who are going to be able to stand on their own to be able to show what they've got when it comes to the Conquest format. And you were mentioning that Conquest is not really the competitive format for Hearthstone right now. The Hearthstone Championship Tour for the last several years was in the Conquest format, but for the Hearthstone Grandmasters, which is the league that Hearthstone has adopted as their competitive approach for this year, is played in specialist format. So it is kind of special that we're getting to go back to Conquest, which is, I have to say, I think my favorite competitive format to play in.
Yeah, definitely there's a lot of debate whether, you know, people wanted Conquest, people wanted Last Hero Standing, another format that was often played, and then we kind of switched over to Specialists, so everyone kind of forgot how to really play these older formats. But I think it's going to be really cool to see, just because every time you have a format that is not the competitive kind of mainstay, you have a lot of players who kind of, the ingenuity comes out, you got a lot of pilots and people who are good at deck building, and those players tend to shine in more unorthodox formats. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to bring today, because Specialist kind of rewards the same decks being played over and over again and piloting them extremely well, while Conquest rewards more deck building and knowledge matchup in general. And so I'm excited to see how that's going to play out.
Yeah, Conquest is a format that is really unique because you can adopt somewhat of a targeted strategy. If there is a deck that's very, very prevalent in the meta, say Bomb Warrior, and you have 4 decks that you think can beat Bomb Warrior more than 50% of the time, you can attempt to bring a unified strategy that will target that Bomb Warrior and make it so that your opponents who have that deck simply cannot get a win with it. Now, in Hearthstone, it's very rare that you're going to have that many decks that really, truly hard counter something, and that have, say, a 65+% win rate against
Bomb Warrior especially.
Bomb Warrior especially. I don't know that that's necessarily the deck you would want to counter,
yeah.
But we'll see the strategies that these women have adopted. But yeah, it's really interesting because you can sort of have that unified strategy around your 4 decks. Now, whether it's just 4 decks that these women like playing, 4 decks that they're comfortable with, or whether they've gone that extra bit of effort to be able to bring 4 decks that really do synergize well together, we'll have to find out. But it looks like we're just going to jump right into game number 1 here, and we are already into turn 2. It's looking like we've got Token Druid for Trojanator, and Sapphire appears to be on that all-important Bomb Warrior. Very, very popular deck right now. Very powerful. Certainly one that you've seen if you've been watching the Hearthstone Grandmasters League, and one that is very powerful against Token Druid. So I'm thinking Trojanator's not too happy about this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the Warrior has just so many ways of dealing with wide boards, which is what the Druid is really trying to get his game plan across, is you want to go as wide as possible on the board, and then using buff cards that give your minions +1/+1. Cards like Savage War push a lot of damage really quickly. That does more damage with the more minions you have on the board. And so with cards like Mad Bomber and Dynomatic and Warpath
it's got
and
bomb
Brawl,
in the name. I think it's fair game.
Yeah.
You can still call it Bomb Warrior.
When you're making Bomb Warrior, you don't just type bomb into the search bar and put everything in.
But if you do,
I'm not complaining.
It's kind of okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with this.
All right.
Trojanator's got the game plan going so far. A lot of stuff's on the board. Not all of it's super powerful, and the Bomb Warrior's about to do a lot of really good things, but there's a chance.
So the basic strategy of the Token Druid is that they're looking to build up a large board of very small minions, and they want to fortify that board with cards like Power of the Wild, Blessing of the Ancients, to be able to buff the board, Soul of the Forest, so that when the minions die, they summon treants in their place, and then you can use Savage Roar to be able to get that finishing push of could be potentially a lot of damage. So it seems here that Trojanator, she's happy enough with 4 minions on board. She's going to go ahead and Soul of the Forest, and we're going to get that spectator client figured out for you right away and be able to see what she's got in hand. But I'm expecting she's got some damage follow-up for this board.
Yeah, absolutely. Token Druid is definitely, I was describe it as the Area 51 deck. Is if there's enough of us, they can't stop us all. We're going to get in there.
Oh my, we're going to storm the Warrior.
Storm the Bomb Warrior, exactly.
And apologies, I do think the cameras are swapped. Or
Trojanator's on the bottom.
I don't believe Sapphire has Druid, though. I believe Trojanator does. So I think that our client is a bit amiss. But like I was saying, we're at the mercy of technology. We'll get that squared away for you right away and actually find out who's playing what.
All right, but speaking of playing cards, Giggling Inventor, not a card we've seen in quite some time. Definitely had some prevalence back when that costed only 5 mana. It was basically in everything. Then it went to 7, kind of fell off the face of the earth. It was in some niche decks where the 7 cost actually buffed it. But now you don't really see it too often just because that's kind of just the nature of the format, and also it's just not that good of a card anymore. But sometimes it just buys you that extra turn, especially against a deck like Token Druid. Those taunts are going to be really annoying.
And the Warrior's going face. So this is, you will hear people telling you that Bomb Warrior is an aggressive deck, and it is an aggressive deck. But I wouldn't say that it's necessarily going to be playing the aggro deck in this matchup in particular.
Right.
Against Token Druid, you're very much looking to be the defensive player. And Bomb Warrior, though it is much more aggressive than, say, Control Warrior, you're still going to be playing Warpath. You're still playing Dynomatic, Brawl, Dr. Boom, Mad Genius, and you have a much better tool set to be able to go very late into the game than the Token Druid does. So the whole goal of the Warrior in this matchup is to simply run the Druid out of resources, and then you'll essentially win by default because they have nothing left that they can do. So I understand wanting to take this very aggressively, maybe feeling like you're behind and you have to change your game plan a little bit, but I think this was too soon. I think the Giggling Inventor would have just been a fine play on that previous turn.
Right, and there's just so many resources available now where, like you said, the Warrior just has to run the Druid out of resources, especially with cards like the Omega Assembly in hand, which in a couple turns is going to give you just 3 random mechs that statistically are going to be very good stats. It just really wasn't necessary. You really just want to fight for board, because now with 4 minions on the board, all buffed already, they're going to be buffed even further, because I believe there's another Twin Spell in the hand from the Blessing of the Ancients. And so there's just like 1 or 2 attacks away from just killing the Bomb Warrior, because the Warrior's at 13 HP. there's been a lot of chip damage in here right now.
Absolutely. One Savage Roar, maybe a swipe in the hand to be able to clear up the Divine Shields, and suddenly this game would be over. And yes, I do believe our Spectator is flipped and the Trojanator is on the Token Druid. There's that swipe that I was talking about, so that's going to get rid of the Divine Shields, mean that it only takes 2 attacks to get through these Annoyotrons, and Savage Roar, of course, gives your hero 2 attack as well. So that is going to be lethal damage, and Trojanator is going to take game number 1.
Token Druid getting there. Was not expecting that at all, just because it's just not really a matchup you get to see too often, because like we said, the format currently dominates deck. The dominating decks are the Bomb Warrior, Rogue, and occasionally the Cyclone Mage if you're confident enough in your skills piloting that deck. So you don't really get to see Token Druid get played too often, but you just saw right there how quickly that game just got over.
The prevailing decks right now in the meta, I would say, are generally rather skill testing.
Absolutely.
And not outwardly aggressive. Cyclone Mage is a very flexible deck that can play very aggressively, but it can also play a more defensive strategy with something like Khadgar and Mirror Images. Bomb Warrior, yes, aggressive, but again, if you throw an Archivist Elysiana into the deck, suddenly you can take it all the way through to Fatigue and beat other control decks. You just have that tool set built into the classic Warrior cards. And then things like Rogue. Rogue is more of a tempo style deck, especially since Rogue was hit quite hard by balance changes over the last expansion. Rogue is much less aggressive now, typically, than it has been in the past. So something like Token Druid is a bit of an outlier, because it really is just a I need to kill you very quickly style deck, or it cannot hold up in the late game. It tops out at the Forest's Aid, but before the Forest's Aid, I think it's just replicating Menace and Swipe. So it jumps from 4 mana to 8 mana. And it really, if it runs out of resources, will not have anything that it can do. So to see a more aggressive style of play here is something that I was expecting. I think typically aggro decks are maybe a little bit cheaper to build. So if you have some newer players, they're going to gravitate towards these decks that are just naturally more accessible. But here we're going to be getting into game number 2. Trojanator, having won with her Token Druid, means that she does not have to play that deck again, and she's going to be moving on to her own Bomb Warrior.
Yeah, this Bomb Warrior looking a lot more traditional than the one we saw last game. No Mad Bomber in this one. You see the Augmented Elix, so more bombs are going to be shuffling in. Wrench Caliber. I definitely think the way his hand's panning out, Trojanator is going to be taking that aggressive line with the Bomb Warrior that we were talking about earlier. But the Mech Hunter doing Mech Hunter things, going really wide on the board, actually plays somewhat similar to the Token Druid in the sense that it can get on the board very quickly. It can get out of hand very quickly. And the Bomb Warrior is going to have to kind of curb that as best they can.
So this is a difficult matchup for the Bomb Warrior. Mech Hunter is very powerful right now because it just puts so much stuff in play every single turn. It's a mid-range style of deck, which is typically quite difficult for control decks to beat. So in particular, Mech Hunter is looking to beat Warriors. However, Trojanator does have a lot of aggressive tools at her disposal, meaning that she could try to counter-pressure this game with the Augmented Elec and the Wrench Caliber, but it's looking like she's going to commit to a more defensive line, try to run the Hunter out of resources, hope she has enough life remaining to stabilize, and then she thinks probably that she can win from there.
Yeah, a little curious that immediately ripping the Warpath there. Also, using the coin, which is a very valuable resource, as well as the Warpath, which is one of your best clears against this deck, against, what was a very aggressive start. Unfortunately, because of the ordering, she did miss out on 2 armor, not Warpathing first and then trading into the 1/1, missing out a little bit there. But surprised that she used the coin and not just playing a Town Crier. I think a 1/1 little Joey bot is not going to be the most aggressive thing, or the most thing you have to worry about, especially because she's one turn away from that War Gear that could come down and make it a big 6/6. Without having to worry about that, I don't think it's that big of an issue. So I would have liked to have seen the Town Crier come down last turn, but this is fine too.
I think Warpath is a very valuable resource in this matchup, and I would have liked to have seen Trojanator save it for a little bit later on, especially since to full clear that board that turn, she had to not just give up her Warpath, she had to give up her coin.
Exactly.
And that's a big expenditure. So, maybe hold on to that Warpath, use your Eternium Rover as much as you can to clear up the board, and then, maybe even just play down the Augmented Elec that turn, and hope that can sort of act as a pseudo piece of removal. You can use your minions as removal resources if they're scary enough minions that your opponent is going to want to prioritize them. And Augmented Elec absolutely is one of those minions.
Especially with minions that have a higher health pool, like the Augmented Elec. That's 4 health at the end of the day, and if the Hunter really wants to get rid of it, that's a lot of resources that have to be expended to deal with it. And so at worst, it takes up like a kill command or something like that, and that's plenty fine from the Bomb Warrior perspective. That's 5 damage not going to your face.
So now we're looking from Sapphire's perspective, so we can get a look at her hand. This turn, she did have quite a few options. Snip Snap has Echo, so she could have played it twice as 2/3s. It has Magnetic, so she could have magnetized it to the Micro Squad and pushed an additional 4 damage this turn. She opted for a strategy that seems to indicate that she wants to take this a little bit later as well, and that's just value generation and resource generation off of that Ursatron.
Yeah, you definitely just have to read the context of your hand, how your opponent's playing their hand as well, just to see whether you want to go for that aggressive line or whether you want to go for the value line. And I think based off the context of her hand with the Snip Snap, the Argent Commander is a little bit of damage, but your opponent's not going wide anytime soon, so Unleash the Hounds is probably not going to be doing a whole lot. So I really like going the value-oriented route just because you know this game's not going to be over in the next couple of turns. So that means you have to plan for the next 5-6 turns. And that means getting more mechs with the Ursatron and putting down Divine Shield minions that could potentially get in more than once.
So instead of taking a value trade this turn with the Argent Commander or the Ursatron, Sapphire opted to pare her board down to just 3 minions. It plays around Brawl quite effectively. I don't think she's necessarily too worried about Warpath because she's seen one already. But there is certainly some merit to having a smaller board size in this matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially because, like you said, there's just a bunch of 1/1s on the board, and at the end of the day, those can accumulatively add a lot of damage. But you already saw 1 Warpath down, so it's very likely that Trojanator only has 1 copy of Brawl, because that's what most lists are currently running. Especially in a Conquest format where you can't really control your sideboard, so where it's like, oh, I'm up against this matchup, I'll just add another Brawl.
No, you don't have that opportunity.
That's just not a thing. It's like you're stuck with what you got, and we don't know what the Trojanator has because the deck lists aren't open, but it is very likely that she only has the 1 copy of Brawl and only 1 more additional copy of the Warpath. So I like her playing around basically the only removal that's remaining in the list.
Apologies, our spectator is flipped again, it appears. Trojanator is on the Warrior, and Sapphire is playing the Hunter right now. And Sapphire has a lot of damage. If she chooses to just sort of send this all face, we could see her potentially wrapping up the game in a turn or two. I do think that the order in which you utilize your damage is important, though. This War Gear is like a +5/+5 buff onto a minion that you get to attack with immediately. It's 4 mana for 5 damage that you can have repetitive. But because she chose to go with the Leroy this turn, 1, she opens up Brawl. 2, if she loses her mechs, now she can't immediately play the War Gear and get that damage in. So I would have liked to have seen the Leroy be saved for last, actually, and get this War Gear down onto that even just microbot that was still there and try to send that damage in first.
Yeah, the Magnetic, it's almost like having charge in its own way. And so Leroy and the War Gear in this specific context are almost the same card because it's just immediately pushing damage. And so by holding on to it, fortunately, a mech did live through the Brawl, and so it didn't end up mattering too much in the end, and that's a lot of damage being added there.
It is.
Also, really curious to see hear why went for the War Gear rather than just putting more Snip Snaps on the same thing.
Yeah,
just because it's only 1 less damage, but it adds so much more value to the hand or the board.
I think a lot of newer players, specifically in Hunter, which is a very aggressive deck by nature and has that steady shot hero power. People are going to tell you, weave that hero power in, get as much hero power value as you can. But in this case, because Snip Snap has Echo, you could have just magnetized the Snip Snap on. You ended up, floating 1 mana anyway. Magnetize that final Snip Snap, you get an extra 2 damage, which ends up evening out to the same as the hero power is, and you would have just had a more powerful minion on the board. So I do think it's important to take stock of everything that you do have available to you. But ultimately, Trojanator went for a YOLO bomb strategy. I think she had about 5 or 6 bombs in the deck at that point, but she was going to need to draw 5 of them in a row to be able to win this game. So Sapphire is going to tie things up 1-1, and now her Mech Hunter will be unavailable. She has 1 with this deck. Now she needs to win with her 2 remaining classes.
Yeah, and this just kind of, I want to just tie this back into, we were talking about the differences between Conquest and Specialist. And Specialist in this matchup, going into games 2 and 3, very traditionally, Warrior is going to have a deck with a lot of silences available in the sideboard just for this matchup, just because of how bad it is. So you see cards like Spellbreaker, see cards like Owl, see a little more removal to help with that. But Conquest, that's just not available. You're stuck with the deck that you have. And so in this kind of thing, you don't get another chance to beat that Mech Hunter with your Warrior. Like, that's your loss. You got to move on, and you got to get the rest of the matchups.
Well, but it's kind of okay when you think about it. It's possible that Trojanator's lineup just is not particularly good against Mech Hunter in the first place. And unlike Last Hero Standing or Specialist, where if you're playing you know, a lineup or a deck that is just really bad against your opponents, you can't get swept by it in Conquest.
Yeah.
That Mech Hunter is gone. She does not have to worry about playing Bomb Warrior versus Mech Hunter again. Maybe she's more comfortable with this matchup that we're going to be seeing here. It's going to be Trojanator on the Hunter and Sapphire bringing out a Mage deck. And I believe Trojanator, yep, there we go. It's going to be a Mech Hunter build, just generally more popular right now than Mid-Range Hunter, it seems. A little bit more straightforward. And Sapphire, it appears to have a minion-based Mage deck.
Yeah, looking a little more on the mid-range route with this Twilight Drake, and then you see cards like the Messenger Raven here, and it's going to just add more cards to the hand. So this Twilight Drake is very likely going to come down as like a very powerful minion. It's probably going to be a 4-8, potentially a 4-7 if she uses the coin. And that's just going to be a lot of stats that I don't think the Hunter really has a way of dealing with. I don't think there's really any silence in the deck. There's potentially a deadly shot.
They don't have silence, but they do have Spider Bomb and Venomizer.
True.
So actually, this Mech Hunter, I would say, is relatively well equipped to deal with large minions by themselves. If decks go quite wide, this Hunter usually, maybe you'll see a single copy of Unleash the Hounds. If they get late and they have the 2-card combination of Missile Launcher and Venomizer, then that will give the Missile Launcher poisonous, so at the end of the turn it will wipe every other minion on the board. But until we get to that point, yeah, the Hunter's going to have a hard time dealing with wide boards. But it does have some tools to be able to clear up, say, like a Mountain Giant.
Cool.
Which is why I actually don't think this deck is particularly bad against Cyclone Mage. But it's very clear that we're looking at a deck that is not what we're used to when it comes to Mage right now. There's a lot more minions here.
I'm just having fun reading these cards right now because
You don't know what Batterhead is, Will?
I want to say doesn't it double its attack when it kills the thing?
No, it's if it kills an enemy minion, you can attack with it again, and it has Rush.
Okay.
So it's sort of like a pseudo AoE at times. It's a card you will really only ever see in Dual Paladin, which is a super fun deck, but again, not one that you will ever play against unless you're playing on ladder.
Because you're essentially just using it as a board clear, and against Mage of all classes, which is just the king of board clears. I think there's just so many other
Queen.
I apologize, Jaina.
The context of the event, William.
I apologize, Cora.
Thank you.
The better in the future. But there's just so many. Blizzard, Flame Strike, Frost Nova Doomsayer. So many different
Mage
tools
is not
available.
hurting for AoE. Not at all.
Not at all. And so seeing this, I'm just a little bit confused. I'm trying to think of a context where a minion-based board clear would be better than a spell-based. And I think counter spell, but
a minion-based board clear does have some value if the minion survives and you have Conjurer's Calling. If you have Conjurer's Calling available to you, you can't play it in the same turn with the Batterhead unless you have a coin, because the Conjurer's Calling does cost 3 mana. But if the Batterhead survives until the next turn, you can go ahead and Conjure that bad boy. You get 4 8-drops out of 1 8-drop with the twin spell on the Conjurer's Calling. But Trojanator is not even worried about these minions at all. Sapphire is playing 1 minion per turn at most. Trojanator is looking to ignore these minions and just push damage, put on pressure, and she's doing a great job of it so far.
Right, no reason to trade at all, especially against... That's just kind of my philosophy when you're playing. Don't make trades that your opponent's going to make for you. Just go face. Especially with these aggressive decks.
Yeah, I do think there is some merit to Sapphire making a trade there.
Well, now she has to.
Well, she didn't think so. She pushed face. And you know what? She does have a Fireball in hand. She's got a Mountain Giant on the board. Maybe just aggression is the name of the game here. She wants to try and counter pressure. But again, there is a very high chance that Trojanator has exactly this card right here, the Venomizer that you can magnetize, and it gives one of those Microbots poisonous.
Now this Microbot's going to make more Microbots. And the taunts, seemingly unpassable, are now dead.
And this is definitely a matchup where Trojanator wants to be weaving in those hero powers. If you have an extra 2 mana, and you maybe have a 2-mana minion in hand, but you could play that minion on the next turn because you don't have, say, enough resources to be able to fully utilize your mana for the next turn or the next 2 turns, then it's totally fine to weave in that hero power. But a situation like we saw with Sapphire in the previous game, she just wasn't really gaining anything from that hero power. So use your hero power with intent, but you know, feel free to use it. It's there to help you. It's very consistent.
All right, I can only assume of the choices of the secrets presented that she chose Counterspell. I really can't think of another option that would be better.
There's not a lot of spells played in this Hunter deck. You have Tracking, you have Bomb Toss, occasionally Unleash the Hounds.
I don't think Kill Command is in the list because there's no beasts.
Nope.
So it's basically just a 3-mana deal 3, which is not that good. So there's a Leroy Jenkins. None of the secrets were going to stop that guy. Mirror Entity, unfortunately. While having your own Leroy is very nice, you have to be alive to use him.
And that is going to be game number 3 over to Trojanator. So she is going to bring her own score up to 2. She's going to take a 2-1 lead over Sapphire, meaning that if Trojanator can find a win with her final class, then she will be able to take the set. She'll be moving on to the semifinals.
Now, you were on stage with the players a little bit earlier, helping them out with the bands and stuff like that.
I
Do you have
was.
any inkling of what this final deck is?
Let's see. We've seen the Hunter, the Warrior.
Is
She
it the
lost to the
Murloc?
Warrior.
Oh, so it's the Warrior.
it's the Warrior.
Okay, so the Murloc got banned.
Yes, her Shaman was banned. Yes.
Unfortunate.
And I believe she banned a Paladin from Sapphire, which I'm not positive whether it's a Mech Paladin or like an OTK Shrivala Holy Wrath Paladin, but having seen the context of the other decks that Sapphire has brought, they're all very minion-based. We've seen some mechs. I would assume it was probably a Mech Paladin.
Yeah, which makes it a great ban because that's just very good against the entirety of Trojanator's lineup. It's very favored, and so getting that ban out of the way, I don't want to deal with it. Very good play from her.
Yeah, in particular, Bomb Warrior, very bad versus Mech Paladin. Because Bomb Warrior chooses not to run Silence, they don't run Execute. Often they only one Brawl. So Mech Paladin can just stack very tall onto a single Mech minion, give it, Light Forged Blessing for some lifesteal and Divine Shield, and then you have Kangor's Endless Army. It's bad news bears for the Bomb Warrior. But this is going to be a Bomb Warrior mirror now for game number 4. Sapphire's got to win this game and the next game to be able to take the series. She is down 2-1. And still, I believe Sapphire is our warrior on the bottom and Trojanator is up on the top. Sapphire was playing a Bomb Warrior that was a little bit more mid-range, I would say. She's got Whirly Gliders. She has more mech synergy. Maybe we're going to see like War Gears in this deck, for instance.
Also more on point with the bomb theme, which I'm a huge fan of. A lot of, you got the World Glider right here. Just says make a bomb. Not really what you want to be doing in the matchup, but dang it makes a bomb.
I do actually think that there is a lot of unexplored space with Bomb Warrior right now because it is just a deck that is so incredibly good as is. And as it has been, it's been sort of a mid-range to control style deck that has a win condition of the bombs. But it seems like Sapphire has taken a very different direction here, which is just an overall more aggressive Bomb Warrior and really turn it into an aggro deck. And I do believe our score count right now is incorrect, so apologies for that. Trojanator should be up 2-1.
Trying to figure this deck out because you want to be aggressive, you want to go wide with mechs, and you want to magnetize them with your other mechs and make your mechs more powerful. But then you have cards like the Security Rover, and that's just not what you want to be playing in an aggressive deck. Sure, it's a good card, especially if you get it off Dr. Boom. It can make taunts, it can add a lot to the board. But if the game plan is to kill your opponent, that is not what you want to be doing. All right, but Wrench Caliber picked up off the top. If the plan is to go aggressive, I think...
There's only one place this is going. Yeah. Ship it face. I mean, Sapphire is trying to put as many bombs into Trojanator's deck as she possibly can. Of course, you can't control when your opponent draws those bombs, but eventually the deck gets so dense with them that, it turns into a 20% chance, a 25% chance, a 30% chance for them to draw a bomb every turn. And eventually it will be damage that goes through, just it's quite delayed. And she's hoping that in the meantime she can maybe connect with this Replicating Menace or get some value out of the Security Rover, which is one of the warrior cards that we did see actually get buffed very recently.
Yeah, but just looking at the hands right now, it's just going to be so hard for Sapphire to go with this aggressive game plan just because Trojanator just has so many resources available to her. It's just removal with the Shield Slants, removal with the Warpath, removal with the Dynomatic, bombs to be shuffled with the Elic. It's just not shaping up to be in her favor right now. And I think it's going to take a lot more than just a few bombs, especially with Dr. Boom just off the top. Going to be able to coin that out a turn earlier. I think that's just all she wrote, I feel like.
That might be the nail in the coffin. Dr. Boom Mad Genius in Warrior Mirrors, it is never more important than in those mirrors because now you have that additional resource generation from the hero power. All of your mechs have Rush now, and in a matchup like this where Dynomatic previously wouldn't have been able to get much value because it only damages non-mech minions, now it's a 5-mana 3/4 with Rush. Now it can actually do something.
And also, not even to mention just the hero power itself is Sapphire every turn has a hero power that says gain 2 armor, and it's just like, well, that's not very exciting. And then on the other hand, Trojanator has a
yourself.
hero power that says, you want to do cool stuff? We're going to do cool stuff.
Summon 3 microbots, gain 7 armor, discover a mech, deal 3 damage. We don't talk about Kaboom.
The hero power doesn't exist.
It's not great.
Definitely the weakest link of the hero powers.
You are the weakest link. Ignored. Kaboom comes in handy sometimes, mostly
Every
against
once in a
token
while.
decks. But in this matchup in particular, there we go. We got him flipped. In this matchup in particular, you're looking for Blast Shield and Delivery Drone. You want to discover additional mechs, and you want to gain so much armor that the bombs won't kill you. But finally, Sapphire has been able to get some value out of that Goblin Bomb, immediately magnetize onto it, and she's going to actually take a trade here, which... You know, I understand her reasoning, but she is so far behind that I don't think it really matters whether she went face or took a trade here.
Right. Even if Dr. Boom wasn't on the field right now, it's just looking at the contexts of the hand, she's super far behind already. And then you just compound that with the Dr. Boom hero power every turn. And the fact that I think Trojanator's deck list overall is probably card for card going to be slightly stronger than Sapphire's just based off what we've seen so far.
Yeah, it looks that Trojanator does have constructed decks. It seems like
more
her decks are
traditional,
much more meta, sort of vetted by community members of sorts. That doesn't necessarily mean that her decks are always going to be better. Like I was saying, I think there's a lot of unexplored space right now because really the only competitive avenue right now is Grandmasters and Open Cups. So in those, you sort of feel quite bad if you're rocking the boat and you don't get results. But it looks like Trojanator's decks are the more tested ones.
Well, there's 2 damage going face, and Dr. Boom has just gone to laugh. It's 13 armor, 25 health. Not a whole lot of aggression is coming out right now, and what little aggression was left with these microbots is just going to get cleared away with this Warpath. Ella coming down. So I'm just trying to think of what potentially Sapphire could draw that could potentially get her back in this game, and it looks like it would just have to be a Dr. Boom of her own with a whole lot of discovering. Omega Assembly could potentially get her like a Mechathune, just some big minions that could potentially just add a lot of pressure, because Trojanator used a lot of her removal, like very wisely, but she had 2 shield slams and she still has that Warpath, but slowly but surely the hand size is dwindling.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And deck lists are not public. The players did not have to submit deck lists, so we don't know necessarily what is remaining in these decks. I don't think that Bomb Warriors these days are really opting to play... Hello. That card right there, actually.
Heavy Metal.
I don't think they want to play that card. Not Heavy Metal, but Archivist Elysiana.
Okay.
I would have liked to have seen Sapphire hero power before she played Heavy Metal. In general, 10 drops are just going to be more consistent than 9 mana cost minions. But a 7/7 isn't the worst thing in the world.
Right.
However, Trojanator, that's 5 targeted damage because the Scrap Hound and the Snip Snaps are mechs. And these microbots can just go ahead and clean up Archivist Elysiana.
Yeah, it's not Heavy Metal. There's an exclamation point on the end. It's Heavy Metal.
Oh, my apologies.
Yeah.
Much
If we're gonna pronounce bees.
Bees?
Question mark?
No. There's no question about it. It's bees. 4 E's, 3 exclamation marks. There's bees.
Very much looking forward to casting bees. But Mad Bomber coming down, actually doing his job for once. He killed a minion. That's more than I thought he was going to do that turn.
Well done. But just Trojanator has so many options available to her. She's going to be able to clear the board, maintain her advantage. She could get that Wrench Caliber down and continue putting more bombs into Sapphire's deck, which we haven't actually seen her have any bombs yet, or draw any bombs yet, excuse me, but they're there. They're looming. Yeah. The theme from Jaws is growing ever louder.
I don't think, no matter how loud that Jaws music gets, though, I don't think she's going to be too worried about it, because like you said, she's at 38 HP right now, and those bombs, while they do quite a bit of damage, you're going to need quite a few to get up to that number.
Well, I'm talking about bombs in Sapphire's deck from Trojanator. There be bombs in those waters.
That music's getting very loud, and she's very scared.
And again, I don't think the bombs necessarily are going to be what wins Trojanator the game, although they may deal the final points of damage. She has the resource advantage right now, and those resources ultimately are what wins or loses you this matchup.
A little disappointed she didn't pick the Mechathune.
Look, she's a responsible Hearthstone player.
It's obviously incorrect, but I'm just saying from a point of view of not only the commentator, but a spectator and a connoisseur of the arts.
A connoisseur of the minions.
I want to see Mechathune.
When Dr. Boom Mad Genius is in play, all of your mechs have rush. So nice job by Trojanator to trade over the minion that she just played with Rush because that cannot connect face for the turn. So she's maximizing her damage every turn. It looks like she's quite experienced with this.
Now, speaking of Rush, I was playing a little bit of the Dungeon Crawl. Old solo adventure, and I'm a little upset because Ice Howl... Dungeon Run, yeah.
Okay.
What did I say? Dungeon Crawl? My
Yeah.
bad. I was thinking of Corridor Creeper, and then Dungeon I go deeper. But they still haven't changed Ice Howl to say Rush. It just still says Charge, can't attack heroes. And I'm a little upset by it.
Ice Howl is, I guarantee, not a card that many people who are watching right now remember.
And even people who do remember it don't play it.
Poor Ice Howl.
He's trying his best.
Sapphire down to 13 life. It looks like this game is coming down to its final moments. If she could pick up maybe a couple of Mega Devastators here.
She just has to draw 10 more cards and also kill the Mechathune. We found the out.
Well, the Hecklebot's going to soak up 8 damage, but that still leaves...
A lot.
9, 10, 11, 14 available for Trojanator, it looks like. No, there's a Steel Rager in hand. Yeah, this is going to be game over.
Between Rush and everything else, I can't imagine this game lasting another turn.
Yeah, Steel Rager, Explodinator, the Mechanical Whelp. Does not matter. When all of your minions also double as removal, the world is your oyster, and Trojanator is going to take game number 4, and that is going to be the series. She has won with all 3 of her decks, and she will be advancing on to our semifinals. Congratulations to her. Yeah, Sapphire's decks, not as polished, like we were saying, maybe not as tested by the meta.
Mainstream.
Yeah, not as mainstream, but I do think that there's some merit to wanting to make Bomb Warrior just an overall more aggressive deck. And we certainly saw her pick up a win with her Hunter against the Warrior. That was a great matchup for her, and it seems like one that she understood what she was queuing and what she was going for, and she did find success in that one. So great job by her. This is a really unique example for a lot of these women that you're seeing. Obviously, this isn't the Hearthstone Championship Tour. This isn't Grandmasters. These are not players who often maybe even play much ladder or have any competitive experience. And it's really just an awesome outlet for them to get a chance to meet other women who have similar interests to them, or to get to play against other women, because maybe most of the time they haven't had that opportunity in their lives. Yeah, you're going to see different decks. You're going to see less mainstream decks, but that's okay, because the more that they come out and put themselves out there and do things like this, the better they're going to get and the more they're going to grow. And you're going to see as the years goes on for this event, this is year 3. When we get to year 5, year 10, you're going to be having players who are very, very good and who've done this and who have all of this experience under their belts.
Yeah, I can definitely see it going kind of the same way, like kind of the TESPA community went, where we would kind of go TESPA, and it's like, what wacky thing are we going to see today at TESPA?
Kids.
But then
wow.
as the years progress, we start showing up at TESPA like, these guys are good. They're playing decks well. Yeah. What's going on here? I was here for memes, and now they're taking it all seriously.
Well, I mean, that's when we sort of started to have that crossover between professional players who also are college students and want to play in TESPA, players like Noblord, for instance, who was for Rutgers University, was one of the best players in the world for a very long time, also played in TESPA. And I think that's kind of what we're going to get to see here. Obviously, this is a local event, so it's going to be rather limited as to what players actually are able to make the trip out here to this area of California. But the more widespread this becomes, the more well-known it becomes, the more people you're going to have participating, and the better they're going to get. So congratulations to Trojanator. She is going to be advancing to the semifinals. We're going to find out who she's playing against a little bit later on. And kudos to Sapphire for showing up. Very, very well played by her. I casted this event 2 years ago, and she looks very familiar to me. So I want to say that she did play 2 years ago. Maybe she even played last year as well. So it really is just that drive to get out there and to get more experience and to keep competing. That's the way you're going to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially a format like this where it's a little harder to, especially for newer players, to bring 4 decks and play them well, and also you have to ban something, and that can be a little overwhelming at first for someone who's just getting into it. But the fact that we were managed to get this many people to come out and also just like confidently just like walk up to the stage and like, here are my 4 decks, I'm here to play Hearthstone, I was like, this is super cool to see.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? I first started out playing Hearthstone and I played some online stuff. I had no idea what I was doing, but I just knew that I wanted to compete. Certainly it's been about 5 years since that, but I've grown so much in those 5 years that I think the lifespan of Hearthstone is one that we're in the very, very beginning of. I think that we're going to see a lot of growth over the next few years for the game itself, and it's going to certainly widen that audience, and we're going to have people who are maybe just getting in now, but who this is just the start of their journey. If they stick with it for a couple of years, then we're going to see those players get even better. But like we were saying, this is a very wide variety of experience levels. I know we've got legend rank players here. I know we've got players who've been legend rank previously. Trojanator, I believe, is about rank 7 right now, but she's hit legend in the past. So, you can see maybe a bit more experienced overall with competition. I think this is actually her 3rd year playing in this tournament. She's played in all 3 of them. She's not won yet.
Very impressive.
I want to say the year that I commentated, the first year of this event, she finished 3rd. So she's in top 4 right now, looking to beat that best record that she's got. Maybe take it all the way.
Right, exactly. And also, ladder isn't exactly the best gauge of how well someone's going to perform in these kind of things, especially because ladder is not as relevant as it used to be in terms of getting your feet wet in the competitive scene. And so, I'm ranked 25, which is a perfect representation of my skill level.
Oh, Will Scarlet.
Which perfect representation of my skill level. But unlike the players on the stage who are actually very proficient at the game, being ranked 7 and playing against someone as legend, for me, there's no difference there. That's going to be a very even matchup, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I mean, rank. People will tell you rank doesn't matter. Rank matters if it matters to you. If rank matters to you, then it matters.
Exactly.
But yeah, ultimately, skill level in Hearthstone. That the division between rank 5 and legend, and rank 5 and legend, I think the division is much lower than low legend to rank 1 legend, and people who are consistently very, very high legend. I think those players have something figure out that the rest of us just don't.
Right.
They've cracked the code, and I'm still rank 400. That's the code.
Let me in.
Hello, excuse you. But that's the beauty of Hearthstone. You get better very, very quickly. The ceiling is very, very high, but the barrier to entry is almost non-existent. The floor is very low, and you can just sort of walk on in, and you will grow so fast in the game from rank 50 to rank 25. You will improve very much as a player. So if you're out there and you have played a little bit of Hearthstone, but maybe you don't know how to get started, I guess. There's so many fantastic outlets out there to help you learn, and put in a little bit of time, watch some streams, find some friends who play, and you will grow very quickly.
Yeah, go to a Fireside Gathering as well, because especially if you're in the California area, there are so many just absolutely top-of-the-line quality innkeepers who are putting on great events. So if you're in the San Diego, LA area, there's just so many good places to go to get your feet wet competitively, meet some people, meet some friends. 'Cause I think the biggest indicator of success, especially if you're trying to get better at the game, is surrounding yourself with players who have a similar mindset. Because surrounding yourself with players who are also good at the game, you get to watch each other play, and you get to correct each other, and you get to talk through things. And when you talk through things, it exponentially raises the amount of things you're thinking about, and the amount of things that you think about going into the game that make you a better player.
It's not just limited to card games. It's whether you're playing Overwatch or CS:GO or Smash. You're only going to improve so much by yourself, and that's why streaming is such a fantastic educational tool, because you can learn from other people without necessarily needing to be around them. You can ask them questions, but if you've got friends who play the game, talk about the game, because you will learn much faster that way. But I think we're gonna be getting into semifinals very soon, and it looks to be that we're going to be following Trojanator in her journey, as she's going to be playing against one of our more experienced players in the bunch. We seeded our players based on current rank, and I believe this was our highest ranked player. I think her name is Natalie. So we're gonna learn a bit more about these players. We're gonna be back with our semifinal match right after this.
Every one of us starts out as a wide-eyed recruit, myself included. If I could go back, I'd tell that kid, get ready. You're going to serve alongside some amazing people. They're going to become like family to you. And together, you'll see them do things that will help change the world. That'll change you. One day, you're going to look up and be a better you. And this nation will be better for it too. I'm General Dave Goldfein. Come join us. Your nation is waiting.
Two 2018 was a big year for us here at Nerd Street Gamers, but it was an even bigger year for you, the gamers, the athletes, the casuals with aspirations to become better, bigger, become pro, and we gave you the opportunities with summer camps, boot camps, weeklies, monthlies, and of course tournaments. Tournaments with over $200,000 in prize money. We made gaming more accessible, not only in Philadelphia, but in Denver with a brand new 18,000 square foot state-of-the-art esports arena, and we've only just begun.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our day 2 of Supergirl Gamer Pro here in beautiful, sunny Oceanside, California. I'm your host, Abby Sherlock, aka Sherlock Homie. Supergirl Gamer Pro was founded as a safe platform to encourage women in the esports scene. Supergirl Gamer Pro is powered by Turtle Beach, the #1 in gaming audio. Be sure to stop on by the U.S. Air Force display to check out their Performance Lab trailer, a one-of-a-kind interactive experience packed with challenges that will put your mental and physical skills to the test. Featuring the latest and most advanced technology like the Oculus Rift and Kinect 2, you'll be able to compete against your friends and airmen as you challenge your body and mind to see how you stack up to Air Force standards. Do you have what it takes? Lenovo Legion is a proud supporter of women in gaming. Be sure to stop on by our tournaments and free play all day to show us how you play like a girl. Nerd Street Gamers is bringing esports to everyone. From in-person competitions to LAN centers coast to coast, Nerd Street Gamers is empowering local communities by bringing esports to everyone. Now, we're going to go back to our caster's desk with Cora and Will Scarlett to continue our Hearthstone tournament.
Have quite a background in the game, so I would expect her to be able to sort of pick up where she left off and maybe not be an expert at any of the decks that she brought, but it does seem like she has a very good understanding of them. And she's brought some decks that seem to be rather straightforward. Mech Hunter, for instance, very powerful, rather straightforward. We haven't seen any Cyclone Mage just yet, but I am wondering if maybe Nat Rose is going to be our first player that has sort of been brave enough to bring what is widely considered the best deck in the game right now, but also one of the most difficult to play.
Don't want to rain on your parade. I believe Nat Rose did bring Mage.
Okay.
But it was banned away.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I was looking forward to it as well.
That's rough.
But
rougher than the wind right now.
Right, and on the other hand, Trojanator's Token Druid got banned away, which would make sense if the Nat Rose did bring that Cyclone Mage, because going very wide and being very aggressive with that Token Druid is the last thing that you want to happen as the Cyclone Mage, and so I think that was probably a very smart ban.
Well, I think up to an extent, the Cyclone Mage can sort of deal with wide boards from the Mage. It is sort of limited to how many Frost Novas can you get. And with Magic Trick and the addition of Mana Cyclone, you can generate quite a few additional ones that you don't put in your deck. But certainly the Token Druid can go a little bit faster than the Mage has the ability to handle, and things can get out of hand rather quickly. But it looks like we're going to be getting into game number 1 here, and it is going to be Nat Rose on the Mech Hunter and Trojanator on the Bomb Warrior. We did see Trojanator play this matchup in the previous series. It's not a good matchup for the Warrior. It can be won, but it's difficult. We'll say that.
Yeah, there's a few issues coming at it from the Bomb Warrior's perspective. The main one being what is in the opening hand of Trojanator is this Dynomatic, which is one of the premier removal pieces for the Warrior.
Every other matchup in the game.
Exactly. It's,
no, not Mech Paladin.
Yeah, it does 5 damage to all non-mech minions on the board. Not all, but like 5 damage split among the minions on the board, and but doesn't affect mechs, which unfortunately, given its namesake, Mech Hunter really only has mechs, except for the Leroy Jenkins, but if that's on the board, you're probably already dead.
Yeah, I mean, Fireworks Tech isn't a mech either, but
yeah.
Generally you're not going to find value out of this minion in particular in this matchup. But Trojanator chose to just hero power on the previous turn, so she does have access to the coin right now to be able to play with the Militia Commander to clear up that upgradable Framebot. Militia Commander does have +3 attack the turn that it's played, then it goes back down to 2. But it's really fantastic removal.
Yeah, and a lot of matchups going back down to 2 is kind of unfortunate because it doesn't really get to clear off much else. But in this matchup, 2 attack is just plenty. Because most things only have 1 or 2 health in the beginning, unless it gets upgraded by something like the War Gear or the Missile Launcher. And so Trojanator just very aggressively using that Warpath, and I think this is going to be the perfect turn to use that Warpath, just because this denies War Gear coming down on one of your mechs, and it also denies stuff like Venomancer, or basically any magnetic play that could come down is no longer going to be able to come down and be as aggressive or as good as it was going to be.
Ooh, I wonder what this is.
Spider Bomb Fireworks tech, here it is. Going to clear off that Militia Commander. Now basically anything Trojanator is going to play is basically going to be at the mercy of this Spider Bomb. So is she going to go wide with some smaller minions like the Clockwork Gnome and the Eternium Rover, or is she just going to bite the bullet and Militia Commander down this 3-3? I think I would prefer if she went a little wider this turn.
Honestly, I wouldn't even mind if she just played the Dynamatic here.
Just a 3-4. Still
yeah,
good, yeah.
And just try and entice Nat into trading over that Spider Bomb into the Dynamatic. Nat doesn't really want to do that. Her hand right now is dwindling. There really is not any card draw in this deck outside of Ursatron being able to tutor specifically for mechs and tracking if you're choosing to run that. So there is certainly a world we're looking at where Nat runs out of resources, is forced to just play off the top of her deck. But with Trojanator choosing to clear up that Spider Bomb, Nat does not have a mech on the board right now. So she can't choose to just magnetize that Missile Launcher and go face.
Right. Also, Missile Launcher just doesn't too good right now, just because the Eternium Rover is just going to be giving the Warrior more and more armor. Here comes that Magnetic into play.
That draw for Trojanator is massive, because now she can fortify the health of this Eternium Rover, which means it's going to be able to trade over more than once or twice even, and that's going to be additional armor that Trojanator gains. Of course, it's looking like she's going to win this resource battle, but she still needs to stabilize her life total beyond that.
And here's the end-all be-all that I was about to bring up. Venomizer into Missile Launcher is the perfect combination of cards to clear off this Eternium Rover, but the problem is Snip Snap, Death Rattle, once this dies, it's going to just summon a bunch of Microbots. So even though you're clearing off all this aggression, a whole new wave of aggression is going to be following this up. So congrats, you're not gaining any more armor, but you still have this huge board to deal with.
Well, there's going to be... I wouldn't say that Nat is necessarily concerned with the board from Trojanator right now. Or she's not concerned with Trojanator killing her. She's concerned with Trojanator killing her minions. So it looks like because Trojanator does have 2 brawls available to her, she's going to go take that 1 in 5 chance to let this Missile Launcher survive. If one of her Microbots survives, then she's successfully dealt with that 2-card combination. And now she is ahead on board for the first time this game.
Yeah, and her health total is at a pretty stable life total as well, just because this is usually the turn is when you brawl, you win, you're slightly ahead on board. You're sometimes down to like 5-6 HP, but thankfully because of the Eternium Rover and a few other effects, has a higher life total. And so now she doesn't have to worry about getting her health back up so much as she has to worry about getting minions on the board, shuffling bombs, and killing her opponent before she kills her.
Yeah, you can see that Trojanator has sort of taken a bit of a strategy change with the last couple of turns. Now that she's ahead on resources, she's ahead on board, she has access to all of these bombs with the Augmented Elec and the Clockwork Goblins, she feels like she can go aggressive. And I think this was the perfect time to change her game plan. Nat Rose is not equipped to win this game if she trades. So it looks like she's making a mistake by not clearing up that Augmented Elec, but if she takes time to clear this Elec, she's just giving Trojanator more time to stabilize. She needs to put on as much pressure as she can, hope that Trojanator slips up, and then hopes that she can combat, or that she can sort of compound on a mistake from her opponent with that Leroy Jenkins. But this is just about going to be the nail in the coffin, I think.
Yeah, speaking of stabilization, Ziliax is absolutely the best card in order to accomplish that. Able to magnetize it on any one of your mechs, so that is a taunt minion, which is already bad for the hunter. It has lifesteal, which is bad for the hunter, and it has 5 health, and you don't have a board. Kind of just the trio of bad things that can go wrong for the hunter with this Ziliax, and that, like you said, one of many nails in the coffin.
This is just about the best feeling that you could ever have as a warrior versus a hunter.
Leroy trading
Leroy
in.
to trade.
Oh, and Trojanator back up to 27, basically at full health at this point. Has board control, has at least 4 bombs in Nat Rose's deck.
That's 2 more.
6, making more.
You can play the Weaponized Pinata and Hero Power this turn, or Trojanator can be very, very safe and just choose to shield block and armor up.
All these are just going face. I wonder if she's going to hold on to the shield slam.
She doesn't need to use it.
Yep.
She's at 34.
No reason. I'm trying to think of any sort of punishment. Snip Snap would have been kind of the punish for leaving a mech on the board, but at this point in the game, doesn't even matter.
That is a really important win for Trojanator. That's a matchup that she lost in her previous series today. So now the fact that she was able to take a win in an unfavored matchup for herself means that she's got her Bomb Warrior out of the way. Maybe that wouldn't have been well positioned against the other decks from Nat Rose. So Nat now is going to have to bring out that Hunter deck again, try to find a win with that, whereas Trojanator has a one-game advantage, doesn't have to get a win with her Warrior anymore.
Right, and I'm looking at the remaining list. The Murloc Shaman did not get banned this time, so we are going to be able to see the Murloc Shaman this time around. And then the other list was, I believe, her own Mech Hunter, correct?
Yes, if her Druid was banned, then she has a Mech Hunter and a Murloc Shaman.
And so, from my point of view, I think I would queue up the Murloc Shaman in this play because I just don't really want to play the Mirror, especially because that can be pretty volatile in how that can go. So I think I would like to queue up the Murloc Shaman on the hopes that Nat Rose would run back the Bomb Warrior, or not the Bomb Warrior, the Bomb Hunter, because I think you're going to have a little bit better chance of getting another win there.
I mean, I think going into the Mirror is fine. Murlocs versus Mech Hunter, generally I think is fairly good for the Murlocs. Unless the Mech Hunter gets to that Missile Launcher Venomizer combo very early on, it can be very difficult for them to clear a wide board. And oftentimes the Murlocs have Soul of the Murloc, for instance, so you get to clear a wide board once and then do it again. Otherwise, you are constantly going to be under threat of Murloc War Leader or Bloodlust. So here we can see it is going to be that Murloc Shaman for Trojanator, and you live and die by the curve with this deck. So for Trojanator, one-drops are key, not necessarily this one-drop, though.
Yeah, but you gotta play it. You have to fight for board, especially against a deck like Mech Hunter, which has stuff like this Mecharoo, which is going to be applying, I don't want to say pressure, but basically every Murloc you play from here on out is going to have to probably take damage from these Mecharoos, and it's going to be very hard to grab a hold of the board. But actually, what's really interesting is despite this Mecharoo very aggressive opening, an Underbelly Angler would just live.
It would survive. A lot of the time you would expect it wouldn't. There are Bomb Tosses in the deck for Nat Rose. There are Venomizers, of course, which you can magnetize. Fireworks tech would allow for Underbelly Angler to be cleared. But Trojanator, seeing that the Underbelly Angler survives on board, is going to get rewarded here. She can play now 2 Murlocs, get 2 additional Murlocs in hand, and now she's going to naturally have a bit of a resource advantage. Right. There is the option for Trojanator to hold that Sludge Slurper and play it with the Thunderhead. If she wants to. Thunderhead summons sparks every time you overload. Those sparks have rush. Right. So if she were to wait until turn 5 and go Thunderhead Sludge Slurper, she could have 2 sparks.
It's really hard to say, just because, one, you're waiting till turn 5 for that to happen, and how relevant are 2 1/1s going to be in the event that, like, the Hunter just goes nuts the next couple of turns and has a super wide board, and it's like, yeah, I got 2 1/1s, but my opponent has a 6/6 mech, and I'm taking a lot of damage. So it's hard to say. I really like the fact that she played it now, just because next turn you're going to be overloaded, but you're going to have 3 mana anyway. So you're going to get this another Underbelly Angler out, and also whatever Lackey that you get. And so Lackeys are just good.
Lackeys are just good.
I'm trying to think of what would have been up. I think the Witching Lackey would have been subpar.
Ethereal Lackey tends to be very, very good in this deck because you're not running Lightning Storm. But any chance to discover it is usually very good.
So you got stuff like Lightning Storm, Beaker Lightning, even Forked Lightning and Feral Spirits can help fight for board. There's a lot of good options, and so I really like that she played the Lackey generation last turn just so she would have that option this turn.
So Trojanator needs to be thinking, how best can I clear this turn? Does she have a clear to be able to get rid of all 3 of these minions? And it looks like the answer is no, but she can at the very least clear up the damaged upgradable Framebot and the Joeybot, and that means that she should probably just get this Underbelly Angler down while she has a chance.
Really interesting that went with the Tide Caller instead of the Lackey this turn. So if she wants to go for a full clear, she's going to have to trade kind of a 2-1 into a 1-1, which I'm not sure if she's going to want to do. If this was going into turn 5, I think I would have liked to have seen the Lackey, just because that would have given her your opponent less options for magnetized shenanigans. But this way does play a little bit more into Unleash the Hounds, and so this Unleash the Hounds is going to be less effective, but Nat Rose has control of the board, and it's going into turn 5, which is kind of the critical turn for Mech Hunter, and I don't think Trojanator is going to have a way of dealing with it.
I think she's going to be okay.
Kobold Lackey. Never mind. What am I saying?
She also has Toxfin.
Yeah.
Yes, going into turn 5 for the Hunter is very pivotal if they have something on the board to be able to magnetize with that Warrior, which Nat Rose just does not. So Trojanator has done a really nice job of playing these high priority minions that force Nat Rose to deviate from her face plan and just trade. And Trojanator's going for the Stormbringer this turn. She's going to get 4 random legendary minions. Now, these minions certainly can vary as to their effectiveness, but generally the average legendary minion is going to be reasonable. And this is not the strongest board I've ever seen, but it's stronger than what she had.
Yeah, exactly. It was stronger than when you were yesterday, and it's all about progress in Hearthstone. Developing more board control, more and more board control, more value on top of what you developed last turn. Fortunately, she did hit that Warlord, which we actually saw her when she was getting practice in before the tournament started, was getting that Warlord quite often. But Hagatha, the perfect answer for wide mech boards, but it's a turn away. And honestly, the way the game's going right now, I'm not even sure she's going to need it.
She can just push for 9 this turn if she wants to. There's 8 power on board right now. There's very likely more in hand for Nat, but Trojanator's still at 29. So if she wants to get aggressive and maybe just bait Nat into putting a lot more on board next turn and then wiping the board with Hagatha, she had that opportunity. But it looks like Trojanator is going to play full defensive and maybe try to protect this Thunderhead. There are only a few Overload cards that you actually play with the Thunderhead in this package. I believe it's just 2 Voltaic Bursts and the 2 Sludge Slurpers. But of course, you can get additional Overload cards off of Hagatha the Witch's Bewitch hero power.
Oh, well, does Thunderhead read every time you Overload or every time you play an Overload card?
Every time you Overload.
Okay,
it works with Sludge
sure.
Slurper.
Okay.
Or no, it's every time you play an Overload card. It does not work with, like, Swamp Queen Hagatha's Drusvar Horrors.
Okay, that was my... Okay.
Yeah, no, but getting spells off of Hagatha the Witch.
Yes. Which, full boy, is Trojanator going to get a lot of them. And another thing to note right now, Nat Rose is playing Mech Hunter, one of the most aggressive decks in the format. Trojanator's at 26 HP, and she's pretty much out of gas at this point. It's going to be very hard to surmount enough offense to get Hagatha of all heroes down, because every time Trojanator plays something, she's going to get a card or a random spell, and a lot of Shaman spells are very defensive, very good at board clears, and also very good at healing.
Trojanator just will play her minions here. There's a lot of bad Shaman spells, but the average Shaman spell is going to be pretty okay. You can find Bloodlust, you can find Soul of the Murloc, you can find Removal.
See,
Things are looking quite good here.
Toxfin coming down first. Poison is not really relevant.
Have the most options that you possibly can for spells that you're going to get.
Which I really like to see, just because the Poisonous at this point in the game is pretty much I don't want to say irrelevant, but it's not as good as it would be in other situations or other matchups. So I really like just using the 1 mana, get, like you said, get the most amount of options possible from the spell, and then take your turn from there.
And I really like that Trojanator is trying to get the most information out of this Underbelly Angler. She's playing her Toxfins before she's really committing to the expensive Murlocs, because there are a lot of cheap Murlocs that you can generate off of Underbelly Angler.
All right. Unfortunate, no sparks coming out because of the Feral Spirits did fill up the board. But at the end of the day, those are 2 taunts, and Nat Rose going down 2-0 right now. She's going to have to reverse sweep in order to move on to this tournament. And that's just something that's really hard to do in Conquest.
It is, but it is something that was done every single day before Conquest was rotated as the popular competitive format for Hearthstone. It's not easy, but you feel really good when you do it. So for our final deck from Trojanator, it is going to be that Mech Hunter that we've been seeing Nat Rose sort of struggle with. So it's going to start with Nat Rose having to win a mirror. And I'm imagining that their decks are very, very similar. It seems like they both have very competitive standard decks. So I'd imagine this is going to be a very close to 50-50 matchup. And then from there, she's going to have to beat that Hunter twice more with her other 2 decks. It's tough to do, but take it 1 step at a time, get that first win under your belt, and then suddenly things look a lot brighter.
Right, and it's just hard just because Mech Hunter is just one of those decks where it just gets there, and it's like sometimes you feel like no matter how you played it, it was going to get there regardless. And queuing up the Shaman, which we haven't seen yet, which I'm actually really excited for, because I see Fire Tree Witch Doctor, which says Battle Cry. If you're holding a dragon, discover a spell.
This looks to be Control Shaman. I would imagine you're going to see Twilight Drake. I would imagine you're going to see Dragon Maw Scorcher. Maybe if this is a very, very heavy Control Shaman, you could see Ysera at the top end. This is pretty cool. I'm
very excited. And I'm more excited just because I get to be casting this with you because you are a Control Shaman aficionado, I would describe you as.
I love Control Shaman. I've not played a dragon-oriented version of Control Shaman, really, but it makes sense. Control Shaman is often fueled by Shutterwalk at the top end, and Twilight Drake gaining health equal to cards in your hand. Shutterwalk will do the same when it copies Battle Cries, so you can have Shutterwalks that are 612s, 615s. They can get very, very large. So if you're going to be running those dragons already, fill it out with another dragon package. All of these dragons and dragon cards that work with the dragon minions do have Battle Cries.
And also really cool to be seeing the Lackey package as well. So not only are you getting the Twilight Drake Battle Cries and stuff like that, you're also getting the Lackey Battle Cries, which Ethereal Lackey, even if you're getting a random spell, that's still one more card than you had before you played the Shutterwalk. And so just a whole lot of value is going to be generated from the Shutterwalk. But value doesn't mean anything if you're dead. And you're up against Mech Hunter, and they're trying to make you dead real quick.
It's all about survival. And we can see that Nat does have quite a bit of removal right now. A lot of those survival tools. 2 Hexes, an Earthshock, and a Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt to likely clear something before it becomes an issue. Hex to clear it when it becomes an issue. And Earthshock, a lot of the power of this Hunter against Shaman is that Shaman has very little repetitive removal. They have to spend a lot of time getting that Hagatha scheme up to big amounts of damage to be able to clear a board, but then they can't clear what's left over from it. So Earthshock to be able to get rid of, say, the microbots off of Replicating Menace, that's going to be really valuable. Because if any mechs are left on the board for Trojanator, she will just deal damage with them immediately.
Gosh, Earthshock is just such good removal. And it's really interesting to see this play out in the Conquest format because, like I said, when you're playing Conquest, you only have the one list, and so Silence might not be your first priority when you're creating that list. So the fact that Shaman has access to that just gives it so much more game against decks like the Mech Hunter. It's just be generating more and more value. Frost Shock, that kills a thing.
Now, I know that these two women are more experienced than other players that we've had in this tournament, so I do feel comfortable sort of critiquing what they're doing and maybe offering options for alternate lines. On that previous turn, I kind of just wanted to see Twilight Drake. I think that Twilight Drake for Nat going into Twilight Drake and Lightning Bolt on the following turn, or Twilight Drake and Earthshock on the following turn would have... She would have taken a little bit of damage, but she's very likely playing Witch's Brew in this deck, so I'm sure she has life gain available to her, and she would have had a board. Whereas now, Trojanator can play Explodinator and Mecharoo, and she will have a resilient board presence again.
You can almost think of it as, like, if you're not playing Twilight Drake on turn 4, why is it in the deck?
You need to have a very good reason not to be playing it on turn 4. And I understand wanting to remove and wanting to stay very ahead, but I don't know that it was a good enough reason for me. I wasn't afraid enough. Walking Fountain is just one of the most broken cards, in my opinion, in the game right now. It's hard to find a place to play it because the decks that are very good right now are very good against Control Shaman in general. Bomb Warrior is very hard for Control Shaman to beat. Cyclone Mage, very difficult. But against aggro decks, there is no better minion than Walking Fountain.
All right. Okay, where... So now that... I'm trying to think of what's the... Trojanator knows Earthshock is in the deck for Nat Rose, and I'm assuming she's running 2 copies.
Yes, very likely.
So is... do you give any credence to rather putting the War Gear on one of the bombs so that if it gets silenced, at least you still have the body and you still get to keep the death rattle from the Joey bot or the Mecharoo?
I'm going to level with you. This is a bad matchup for Trojanator. Control Shaman is not a deck that you expect to play against with Mech Hunter because it's just not very popular right now. But it's also just one that seems to have all of the answers for you. It naturally wants to play Silence. It wants to play a lot of burst life gain. And whereas you might be able to take advantage of Warrior because they're playing less removal right now than they used to in the past, Control Shaman is just stacked with it. That's the whole point of the deck.
How about healing for 8 and clearing your board?
Yeah, it's casual.
Just Shaman things. This is what you do. Also, Healing Totem on top of that, just a little Salt Bay on top of that.
I mean, that's back up to 30. Trojanator's running out of stuff to put on the board. Time, life, enjoyment in this matchup in particular. It's a hard one.
She wants to load up the Steam library, you know? There you go. Venomizer coming down just to get some stats on the board. Spider Bomb.
She's got to put pressure.
Can trade into the totem, I'm assuming, and then just kill this walking fountain. Don't want this on a second longer than it needs to be.
Sure. I suppose that the Venomizer is targeted, whereas the Spider Bomb is not, so it's better to keep the Poisonous Bomb around.
Because Trojan knows that it's Dragon Package at this point, so you know there's probably going to be, going into turns 8, 9, and 10, there's going to be some thick Dragon Boys coming down on the field. And I think you're definitely going to want the Poisonous on the field for those. Because like you said, the Spider Bomb, you're not guaranteed to kill what you want. With Poisonous, you are. Unless, of course, it gets Hex. Now it's a Frog. It's doing a whole lot of nothing. And Trojanator suddenly is just not looking so good. Tracking could potentially find some more aggression. Maybe a War Gear to put on this Mecharoo.
Master Flark. Okay.
Okay.
War Gear's probably the best option.
It's a lot of damage. Unfortunately, did get rid of the other Venomizer. So now there's no more Venomizers. So the Missile Launcher is no longer going to be a true board clear.
In this matchup, if you get to the point where your opponent has a big board and you have nothing, you are going to lose anyway.
Right.
I think we saw Trojanator with a War Gear magnetized onto a Mecharoo earlier on, trading over a Twilight Drake, the exact same situation. And you can see she chose to make a different choice here because she's running out of options. Leroy had to end up being lethal very, very soon, so she pushed face. I think that was correct. We can see Nat had the answer. This Control Shaman is all about having those answers, and I think this is going to be the end of the road for Trojanator in this matchup. But she is currently up 2-0. Our score is actually incorrect, so apologies for that. Trojanator's up 2-0. Nat has to win this game as well as the 2 games after to be able to take the series. And the winner of this matchup is going to the finals. And remember, they're playing for a Lenovo gaming laptop. That's a big prize for a 6-member bracket for any Hearthstone tournament. I mean, that's quite a prize.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel real bad for Trojanator right now just because you're top decking, you're looking for that perfect answer to just try to get back in this game, and you get the Galvanizer.
It's the nature of Mech Hunter.
Yeah, it's, you know, sometimes you get what you want, and sometimes you get a 2-drop that does a whole lot of nothing. Didn't even discount the Leroy. And now this is what I'm talking about. Because the second Venomizer's gone, this Missile Launcher, it's pushing a little damage, but it's not killing anything on the board, and Nat Rose just kind of has to figure out what's the best way to not die. And you have a 50-50 chance of getting a Taunt Totem right now. Also just choosing to just keep the Shutterwalk in the hand. I'm curious to see what she's kind of holding out for at this point. Or did she just really want that Taunt Totem that badly?
I mean, I just don't think there was any reason to play the Shutterwalk. Assume that the card in Trojanator's hand is what it is. Assume it's Leroy Jenkins because that's the most burst damage she has available to her. What does she draw off the top that wins her the game? That makes 8 suddenly equal 13 with 10 mana available.
Right.
Because Leroy Hero Power's 8. She still needs 5 more. She's not going to draw anything that deals 5 damage for 3 mana. Nat was safe.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of, like, is there like bomb toss into some sort of weird AoE, and I'm just like, I got nothing. I think she was safe. Shutterwalk was definitely going to be played because you also got something off the Ethereal Lackey that was played very early on in the game. Could potentially get a Witch's Brew off that. More healing, more survivability. And now, because Nat Rose has kind of been giving Trojanator this time, like, this hero power has gotten a lot of damage in. Like, so even though the game's not over yet, but it's about to be, it was potentially those extra turns of steady shotting could potentially have let Trojanator get out.
Well, assume there was no life gain here for Nat. Assume it was just the Taunt Totem protecting her and that she was still at 9 life. If Trojanator had picked up Goblin Bomb, Leroy Hero Power would have been 1-off lethal.
Yeah.
Yep, there's nothing here for Trojanator. She's going to drop game number 3, but she's still up 2-1 here.
Not going to get the clean sweep.
Nah,
Still
no
has
clean
2
sweep
more
here.
chances.
You know what? As good as a 3-0 feels, in my experience, 3-1, 3-2, it doesn't matter. You get the dub.
Hey,
It's all that
still
is
gonna
really
add,
important.
That number in the W columns is going to go up 1 regardless, whether it's 3-2, 3-0. Tiebreakers, I don't think is not an issue in a single elimination bracket. So that's not really anything to think about, but it still feels nice. Be able to go home with your new laptop, be like, yeah, I 3-0'd someone for this. It's a good feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, currently Trojanator up 2-1. Trying to figure out exactly what's going to be going on here. It looks like we might be having an interview with a member of our Air Force, which would be really awesome to hear.
Yeah.
But of course, we've got to finish up this series as well.
Priorities.
It looks like we might be taking a short break. When we know, we'll let you guys know.
Right.
We are your link as to what is going on here, but we've got to be informed too. So we're sort of rolling with the punches. It's the beach. It's California. It's like
sunny weather.
78 degrees. There's dogs everywhere.
We're chilling. We're having a great time.
Yeah. It's chill.
Hearthstone. Don't take life so seriously, man. It's just having a good time.
Well, don't play up the stereotypes that much. People might start wondering.
What stereotype? What are you talking
about? They might wonder. Just a little bit.
You people from Chicago, man.
What is
so
wrong
uptight.
with Chicago?
I'm just trying to have a good time on the beach.
Uptight.
Do you even know what an ocean looks like, Cora?
Right there.
Yeah, now you know.
It's full of water.
Don't drink it, though.
People surfing right now. No, it will dehydrate you.
Yes.
Quite a bit. Yeah. But it looks like we are going to actually take a break from our match. We're going to put things on pause, and we're going to come right back right after this.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our day 2 of Supergirl Gamer Pro. We are going to take a short break from our Hearthstone tournament and interview an amazing individual today. I'm going to introduce to you, you might remember her from last year, but I am here with Brigadier General Jeannie Levitt to give you some info. If you're like, why does that name sound familiar? Here's some stuff. She was the first female combat fighter pilot to command a fighter, to command the 57th Wing at the Nellis Air Force Base, and she has more than 3,000 combat hours logged.
3,000 hours, more than 300 combat hours.
Oh
just
my
to clarify
gosh.
the record.
So even more than I was even saying right now. And she also, which might be for some of our fans in the audience and watching at home, she is the IRL Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel. So to kick things off, we're just going to talk really quick about I think people at home are kind of interested about that Carol Danvers experience. What was it like working with the Captain Marvel team and getting to learn more about this character that was also kind of based on your experiences in the Air Force?
Well, I greatly appreciated the fact that the Captain Marvel crew wanted to be accurate in their portrayal of the character. Because there's no requirement for Hollywood. They can make the character however they want. They initially came out with the 2 directors, so Anna and Ryan came out, and we had a great conversation, and they said, oh my gosh, can we come back and bring the lead actress, Brie Larson?
Yeah.
So I said, sure, and they came back out. I was really impressed by how interested Brie was in getting the character to be accurate. And so not just the mechanics of how do you climb in an airplane, how do you sit in the airplane, but also what was it like being the only female in, you know, a squadron where it's all men.
Yeah.
And then to make sure it was very accurate and that we really helped her with her preparation, we put her in the backseat of an F-16 and let her fly in a high-performance fighter jet to make sure she understood what it felt like.
Was that fun?
She loved it.
And what was it when you watched the movie then? How was that experience like?
I really enjoyed watching it because I could see that they put a lot of time and effort into making that character an accurate portrayal of a female fighter pilot of that time frame.
Totally. Well, that's super cool. And also, I mean, Carol Danvers is a part of the Air Force, and Air Force is one of our sponsors for Supergirl Gamer Pro. So I was really curious to hear from you about why is the Air Force in particular participating in Supergirl, Surf Pro, and Gamer Pro?
So we are very interested in diversity. And so we would like to have more women, more minorities in our force. And so we know that this is a large group of women who are smart, who are physically fit, and so they are someone that we would like to tell about the Air Force. So they know all the opportunities. And so we are looking for people with physical strength, with moral strength, with mental strength, with grit and determination. And you find a lot of those characteristics around here.
Yeah, totally. And then what type of people, you kind of mentioned that moral grit and strength, but what type of person does the Air Force try to bring into their ranks, more specifically?
So those type of people that want to serve their country, that want to be part of something pretty cool, because you get to work with amazing people. You do something that really makes a difference. And in the meantime, you get amazing education and training because the Air Force invests a lot in their people. That's our most valuable resource. We have really cool equipment, but our people are our most valuable resource.
I was saying when I visited the in Colorado Springs, the academy, gorgeous and so beautiful, and you can tell that these people are learning so many valuable skills. I mean, in Air Force for mechanics, but also people skills, and it was incredible.
Absolutely.
So neat. So if someone was interested in wanting to learn more about the Air Force or wanted to join the ranks themselves, what would be the steps they would take to do that?
The first step you could do is go to airforce.com. Because that's a great starting point. You can learn all about the Air Force. If you want to talk to a recruiter, there's a link to put in your information, get the recruiter's information so you can talk to him or her and find out more about the opportunities. If you want to go the officer path, you can go to the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. You can go ROTC, like I did, at a number of universities.
Oh, cool.
You can also enlist in the Air Force right out of high school, and you learn a skill, and the Air Force pays for your education. And so you can earn your education while you're getting training, while you're having amazing opportunities, and often traveling around the world doing really, really neat things.
Yeah, and I'm curious to hear, you kind of mentioned that y'all took Brie Larson around, but what sort of aircrafts have you flown during your time?
In terms of being checked out, I've only been checked out in the T-37, T-38, which are 2 of the trainers, and then the F-15E. But in my last job, I did have the opportunity to fly in just about every airplane that had more than one seat.
What's your personal favorite?
Well, of course, my personal favorite's the one I've flown in the most, the F-15E.
You feel like you're home.
Yes, it's very, very familiar. But flying in the B-1, the B-2, the B-52, those were all very neat. And some of our newest fighters, they don't have 2 seats, unfortunately. So I've never been able to fly in the F-22 or the F-35, but those are both amazing platforms.
That's so neat. I saw you earlier with some of our young gamers that were playing earlier, but what advice do you have for the Supergirls all out here today in Oceanside?
My advice is to dream big. Like, don't let anyone tell you no. You know, if you have a dream, you go after it. You work hard, and you make the most of every opportunity that you're presented with.
Totally. And I think that goes across all fields.
Absolutely.
Air Force gaming, no matter where you're at, definitely. Which is Supergirl Surf Pro is a celebration of that, totally. And I just want to thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for visiting us in the Gamer Pro Zone. And it was lovely, lovely talking to you.
Great talking with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So a big shout out to the Brigadier General and the Air Force. And we are going to go to a commercial break, and we'll be back with our Hearthstone tournament today. But thank you.
The future waits for no one, so we refuse to wait for it. We're not just pilots and engineers, we are pioneers. Today, battles are waged in nanoseconds, and planes are piloted from the other side of the world. We turn night into day and fly missions in space. The future's not coming, it's already here. This is the future. Join us and be the future.
The National Championship Series is in full swing, providing high prize pools, a unique point system, multiple tiers, and fair gameplay to all who participate.
This is taking esports to a whole new level.
Anybody from any background, any social status, any competitive level can join and feel like they're the part of the community.
Prize pools reaching upwards of $25,000, a leaderboard, and a long list of perks. Competing in the NCS is where you want to be.
everybody, and welcome back to Supergirl Gamer Pro. My name is Cora Georgiou. I'm joined by Will Scarlett, and hopefully you enjoyed that little interview we had with the original Supergirl General 11. What an awesome time that was. But we are going to be getting back into our first semifinal of the day. It is Nat Rose versus Trojanator, and currently Trojanator is up 2-1 over Nat. She was up 2-0, so Nat has started her comeback, but she's still got a bit of a ways to go. She has to win the next 2 games, whereas Trojanator just needs to win one of the 2 with her Mech Hunter.
Hey, just got to get there one game at a time. One win is one win, and at the end of the day, you just got to get to that 3rd win to get the W. But it's against Mech Hunter of all decks, and getting 2 more wins, it's going to be hard, but like you said, just take it one game at a time, and eventually you're going to get there, eventually you don't, and then you still had a good time.
The Control Shaman from Nat Rose did prove to be a very strong deck, and one that we weren't necessarily expecting to see. But now it's going to be a matchup that is a bit more in favor of Trojanator. It's going to be the Warrior for Nat, and Trojanator back on that Mech Hunter. Can't yet see if it is a Bomb Warrior or a Control Warrior, though I would expect Bomb Warrior to be more common. And there you go, we've got Bomb Warrior here. Now, I say this is a matchup that Trojanator should be favored in, but we did see Trojanator actually win game number 1 on the side of the Warrior versus the Mech Hunter. So all bets are off, I guess.
Right, it can definitely go both ways, especially with Nat Rose opening hand, having both Warpath and Shield Slam, Town Crier, Clock, kind of everything you could possibly want. You even saw her get rid of the Dynomatic in that opening hand, which is a weird thing to say out loud, mulliganing away Dynomatic, but like we said earlier, it's basically just a dead card in this matchup. It gets very little value at most. It might deal 1 damage to the Fireworks Technician. That's really it, and so getting rid of it is absolutely the correct play, but it's just a matter of fighting for board, and hopefully the Hunter cannot do too much damage before you're able to stabilize, but I don't think Nat Rose is going to have a problem with that given her opening hand. It does have the Elysiana and the Dr. Boom, which you're not really wanting, but like I said, between Warpath, the Militia Commander, and all this other stuff, I think she's going to get to that point in the game.
Blastmaster Boom is a fantastic card, even if she gets to turn 7 and there's only 1 bomb in Trojanator's deck. That basically functions the same as Dr. Boom used to.
And if you recall, that was a real good card.
We played a lot of that card.
Yeah.
So I don't think Nat's too upset about seeing Blastmaster Boom very early on. Elysiana, to me, says that Nat was expecting her opponents to play Warrior as well. And that's really the only reason you would ever play Elysiana, is to go past natural fatigue up against other control decks.
Sure.
But since Trojanator does not have a control deck remaining, that card is going to be pretty much dead. I don't think we're ever going to see her play it this game.
I'm not sure how I like Elysiana in a Conquest format, though, because it, like you said, it's very good in the mirror against other Control Warriors and against controlling decks, but it's Conquest, so statistically, even if you ban the correct deck and Warrior is one of 3 remaining decks, that's still only one of the 3 decks that you really get the favorable matchup in. And once you win with the deck, you don't play it again. So how good is Archivist Elysiana? And I'm not sure.
Not good. I don't think you play it in Bomb Warrior.
Yeah.
Unless you're playing Specialist. I don't really see a reason to.
Right.
I don't really love the Hero Power Pass from Trojanator last turn. I know Galvanizer doesn't get great value against 2 Spider Bombs, and you don't want to just play a Spider Bomb necessarily without being able to trade over something. But still, just a Hero Power Pass doesn't put any additional pressure on the board.
Right.
You want to force the Warrior to have the removal that it needs. And essentially, this matchup is all about the Mech Hunter applying consistent pressure. The Warrior's going to have removal, but eventually they slip up. And then you take advantage of that. Then you have a War Gear to play. Then you have a bunch of bombs blow up from Explodinators and bomb tosses. If Trojanator never applies that pressure, Nat never has to respond to it.
And this is kind of the trap some players fall into, is Spider Bomb is inherently a very reactive card. It destroys a random enemy minion, and so in your head that's a very defensive thing. But in this matchup, you need to be the offensive one. So even though the card is designed to be defensive and remove minions, you really need to use it aggressively. So even if it's just a 2/2 at the end of the day, that's still 2 more damage than you were pushing the turn before. And this Galvanizer is just kind of like, it's going to get a lot of value, but you've already kind of lost control of the board. And so how good really, this is not what you want to be at.
The best way that Galvanizer can be utilized in this deck is to, say, play it on turn 2 and immediately play 2 Mecharus alongside it, get that very early advantage, or just to speed up your curve by a single turn. Say you have Galvanizer on turn, you coin Galvanizer on 1, into an Ursatron on turn 2, into Replicating Menace on 3, into War Gear on 4. That's pretty much your best best possible scenario. All of those cards that you normally would have to push back a turn, suddenly you're playing much faster, and suddenly it's much harder for the warrior to respond because their removal cost doesn't change.
Right, and it also kind of messes with the warrior kind of game plan and what they play around, because going into these later turns, a lot of the warrior doesn't want to overflood the board because of the missile launcher venomizer. But because of galvanizer, that kind of messes with their internal clock in the game. So it's like, oh, I still have another turn before missile launcher venomizer clears my board. I can just go crazy this turn. But because one of them got discounted by the galvanizer, all of a sudden they overstep their boundaries, and their entire board is dead, and the hunter has a chance to come back on the board. But it's not really the case going on right now, because Trojanator has like kind of these big minions that you want to play, but they would have been a lot better had she developed more mechs earlier on to magnetize these on, because now the warrior doesn't get to push 5 damage immediately. It's just going to get shield block, shield slam down, and doesn't get to do anything. It's just a big dumb 5/5 rather than 5 damage going face.
As the hunter, you never want the warrior to be beating you on board in this matchup, so this is an uncomfortable position for Trojanator for sure, but not one that she, is incapable of getting out of. The big problem that I am seeing is the existence of that Blastmaster Boom, and there are several bombs in Trojanator's deck now, so assuming that Nat just wants to play that on next turn, Trojanator will have to clear the board, or she's just going to be dead.
Right, I think there's 2 bombs currently in the deck between the 2 Clockwork Gnomes, and so it's going to be 4 boom bots. And so the missile launcher is going to be able to clear those off, but is that something? Can you risk the boom bots just killing the missile launcher? There's so many bad outcomes, but also so many good outcomes with that, and I'm not sure how Trojanator is going to react. Whether she saves the missile launcher for a Venomizer to get a bigger clear later on, or whether she aggressively uses it to clear off these boom bots.
Well, also, one thing about the Blastmaster Boom and all of those boom bots is Trojanator actually is running a copy of Unleash the Hounds in her deck. So if she wants to just play Unleash the Hounds, go face, try and force Nat to clear the board, then Trojanator can potentially represent lethal with Leroy Jenkins.
Blastmaster Boom on 7. Oh, did she draw one of the bombs?
She did.
Okay.
That's how she went from 30 to 25.
Okay, math. How does it work?
Even still, it's essentially old Dr. Boom.
Sure, and which is plenty good, like we said. Shield slamming down this other one. Huh. Very aggressive use of the shield slams. I'm not sure how I feel about it.
This is a bit of an opening for Trojanator. She has mechs on board finally that she can magnetize onto. Question is, how does she want to go about this?
Also, do you want to? Because there is a, not a board clear, but you can get rid of the Blastmaster Boom by trading in your little 1/1s and then unleashing the Hounds to follow that up, getting 4 more things to trade in. So you can clear off the 7/7 and the 3/1 doing this.
You do also just have the missile launcher, which deals 1 damage at the end of the turn.
Oh, yeah, but that missile launcher could potentially die if you were to do that with the boom bots. I'm not sure how likely that is, or whether that's something that Trojanator is thinking about, but I think looks like she's going with the Unleash the Hounds here.
I don't think Unleash the Hounds is really going to get better than this.
Absolutely not.
And there are some awkward cards in Nat Rose's hand right now. Like we were saying, that Elysiana is not going to get played. Dynamatic, until Dr. Boom Mad Genius is up, is going to be really difficult to find targets for Nat Rose in this matchup. Wrench Caliber, to get value out of that, she has to take damage. So her hand is actually really quite awkward right now.
Right.
I think Trojanator may have found her little window of opportunity.
Speaking of opportunity, let's see how this plays out. One of the mechs is going to win, and that's 8 damage.
But the Microbot survives.
It did, but
that's
not
actually,
for long.
Well, yeah.
Was very good outcome from Trojanator. The Wrench Caliber is going to clear off this board, but if you look at Naros's hands, not a whole lot going on right now.
From Trojanator's perspective, taking 8 damage there is very bad, but getting to keep that Microbot, she was, for just a second, probably pretty happy about.
All right, and so Trojanator, I believe, saw both shield slams already. I think is fairly confident that there's going to be no silences as well. And so I kind of would have liked to have seen the missile launcher come down as well, just because at this point in the game, you just need that damage, especially with Leroy being in hand. I wouldn't have minded seeing the missile launcher come down. One, it would have pushed more damage, and also would have put more stats on the board. And At the end of the day, you just got to get this damage. I think she's too tunnel visioned on this missile launcher venomizer combo to the point where she's missing out on crucial damage that she needs.
I think there's also some merit to going Leroy missile launcher on 10 mana.
Oh, absolutely.
Send the Leroy face, the missile launcher clears up the whelps. Then Nat has to find some way to deal with the Leroy Jenkins still.
Also, that might have been the best Omega assembly I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, it was. You got a bomb out of it.
If you have
got
cards that you're going to play in your deck already,
Yeah.
discovering them is generally quite good.
Yeah, especially Omega Devastator of all the cards to get is probably the best one. But to also get a Goblin to shuffle more bombs and an Eternium Rover just to take up another slot for the Spider Bomb, a lot went right there for Nat Rose. And just drawing even more on top of that, another Eternium Rover. More bombs can be shuffled into the deck.
Trojanator's already drawn several of them, but she's getting to a very low life total where now bombs could actually just win Nat the game.
So I believe currently she's drawn 2 of them and there's 1 more in the deck, and then 2 more are going to be drawn. And she just forgot how that interaction worked.
That was bad ordering from Nat. The only non-mech on the board was the Augmented Elec.
Yes.
So because she played the Elec, did not swing with Wrench Caliber, now she is missing out on having a bomb in the deck. She's missing out on having that 3/4 on the board. That's a bit of a blunder, for sure.
All right. I'll be the first one to admit it. Done the exact same thing, not once, but multiple times.
We absolutely all have.
So we can only say so many things about that play because we've all been there. We've all done it. You feel real bad about it, but here comes that combo she's been waiting for.
Trojanator holding on to this missile launcher for so much of the game, she's going to get very much rewarded right now. She has, at the end of the turn, a mech that will deal 1 damage to all other minions, and it has poisonous, so that will kill all of the other minions. Nat Rose is going down to 7 life. She has no way to clear up this Goblin Bomb that has also a missile launcher and a venomizer in it. Trojanator's got Leroy plus hero power next turn. It's looking like she may actually be able to get this one done.
Yeah, was not expecting that based on how the hands were shaping up. Just because this Leroy Jenkins has been in the hand since like the very beginning of the game. And so I think Nat Rose has a decent idea that this last card is Leroy Jenkins. And so the fact that Trojanator was basically able to play 1 card down this entire game is very impressive. But wait, she could just draw more bombs.
She actually did it!
No, my God!
Oh my goodness. Trojanator had lethal on board. How many bombs were in the deck? 2, 3?
I think it was just the 2 because the Elec died before she swung with the Wrench Caliber.
It was just the 2 bombs
just
from the swings of the Wrench Caliber.
Oh my
No,
God.
there was an additional one from the Clockwork Goblin. There were 3 bombs in the deck.
3 bombs.
But there still were far more cards in the deck than would have, percentage-wise, meant that Trojanator would have been likely to draw 2 bombs in a row. That was a game that she had won had those bombs not shown up.
Oh, I feel so bad because you see that every once in a while
That's
happen.
incredibly
But
disappointing.
to have it happen here in the semifinals with the laptop, it's right there. It's within grabbing distance. You have the Leroy in hand. You have a bomb on the field. Your opponent has no life. And then just to have that taken away from you because bombs.
Look, tilt is something that you'll hear professional players talk about a lot. And I would not be surprised if Trojanator was feeling it right now because that is incredibly disappointing. But she's got to dust off, sit back up. She's playing the mirror now. It's going to be Mech Hunter versus Mech Hunter. And it's going to come down to this. The winner of this game is going to the finals. They are going to be just 1 match away from taking home that Lenovo PC, laptop, excuse me.
It's like Galvanizer in the opening hand for Trojanator, which I like a lot. And it's hard to say for me whether I prefer to be on the coin or whether I prefer to be on the play in this matchup.
I prefer to be on the play if I have Mecharoo in my hand.
Exactly. And also, I think I like being on the play if I have Galvanizer as well, because this is kind of the curve you were alluding to earlier with the Galvanizer into the Replicating Menace, upgraded Framebot Bomb Toss. I think just based on how these hands are shaping up, I think I'm going to give the advantage to Nat just because, like you said, she has the Mecharoo and she also has Galvanizer into the Mecharoo with the Fireworks tech as well. She's going to flood the board so quickly. And
she's ahead. Very, very quickly. But Trojanator has a curve that is going to be a bit better in the mid-game, it looks like. Galvanizer into Replicating Menace, into potentially that, like you were saying, Framebot with the Bomb Toss, and now the Missile Launcher to clear up Microbots after that.
Right.
Again, it's a matter of you need to be able to keep your cool in situations like these because that last game, she had it.
Right.
Until she didn't.
And now we're here. Game number 5 of the semifinals. And this is where cards like Bomb Toss definitely get a little bit better. They just basically act as a frost bolt. They also develop a mech to potentially magnetize later with the replicating menace and also the missile launcher, which both got reduced by the galvanizer in the hands for both players, but it's definitely going to be much better for Trojanator just because Natrose has control of the board. She doesn't really want to be playing stuff like missile launcher that's going to just kill her own stuff. Decisions.
Unleash the Hounds, probably too early.
Yeah.
Rose can clear the entire board with that bomb toss, so I'm thinking that's probably the way to go. You do have to sacrifice a fair bit of your board, but she's seen that Trojanator also played Galvanizer, so there could be a War Gear coming up this turn, for instance.
I think given the option to board clear, I think you just always take it in the mirror, especially just because it can be so punishing because so many cards have magnetic. She's choosing not to do it, so this replicating menace is likely coming down. I can't imagine. I think potentially
Explodinator still.
Yeah, I think the Explodinator goes a little bit wider, so it's going to play into the Unleash the Hounds a little bit, but I think you're not too worried about the amount of power on the board currently, especially with the upgrade of Full Frame Bot. Going to take out one of these and also live with plenty of HP remaining. So this Unleash the Hounds is going to hurt, but it's not going to be the end of the world, especially because this missile launcher is coming down next turn.
This is very likely going to be an Unleash the Hounds that's used to clear.
Yeah.
Is what I'm seeing from it. So generally in this matchup, you're worried if you put a bunch on board, your opponent can Hounds and then deal 7 damage to you.
Sure.
That's not what this is going to be.
But will it be an Unleash the Hounds to clear? Because I thought they were gonna do that last turn.
Yeah.
With the clear, but chose to go face, and
this could be Bomb Toss hero power. Seems like Nat really does favor utilizing that hero power whenever available.
Definitely don't mind weaving it in, but at the same time, Explodinator, I'm not sure how much better this Unleash the Hounds is going to get, but
this is going to be a great missile launcher for Trojanator.
Oh, absolutely. Just a matter of who he wants, or who she wants to put it on.
Pick a bomb, any bomb. You're putting it on a bomb.
Definitely put it on a bomb, because I really want this upgradable frame bot to kill the Mecharoo, summon the Joey bot. Or we're just...
Or we're going face.
Don't
Okay,
care.
I mean,
all right.
I suppose in this case, there was going to be a mech on the board going into turn 5 no matter what. The thing is, if you kill the Joey bot, then the War Gear onto the Goblin Bomb doesn't clear your own Goblin Bomb.
Right.
So...
She could have...
I definitely would have favored the trade there.
Yeah, well, she could have put the 4-6 into the other bomb as well. Because the 4-6 went face.
Yeah, I think the 4-6 probably has to go face there. I think you're cheating yourself if you're not pushing for 4.
Sure.
Second missile launcher picked up.
Run it back. Do it again.
Over.
Okay, never mind. I guess the replicating menace is a fine clear on its own.
This works as well unless your opponent has missile launcher.
True.
And Trojanator is just pushing full face here.
Can't say I dislike it at this point.
I mean, she's playing to her outs, right? It's looking like maybe something on this board is going to survive, so if she could pick up War Gear or Leroy Jenkins, she's just playing this very aggressive. But I do think this is definitely a matchup where you really need to ride that line. You cannot just commit to being fully aggro or fully defensive. The situations differ.
Yeah, every turn situations can change. It's about just recognizing where you stand in the matchup. It's the health.
Remember when I said she could pick up maybe War Gear, maybe Leroy? She got both. So
use your powers for good, not evil.
She can magnetize War Gear, deal 8 damage this turn, put Nat to 8, and lethal with Leroy hero power next turn.
Seems pretty good to me.
There is no Z word.
Job's done.
Good. Because you're 2 for 2 by saying the name of the card. Here. Okay.
That's not the Z word.
Not the Z word.
And there's no counter lethal that I can see here for Nat Rose, and there's no taunt.
Yep.
So in that case, Trojanator being very aggressive this game and playing to her outs of damage off the top of the deck seems to have paid off. Are you seeing a way for Nat to
I'm not seeing
stop
it.
this?
I'm trying to think if there's a sequence of death rattles that could potentially, push enough damage in it. It's just not looking like it's happening.
This is Leroy Jenkins plus hero power.
This is the best play available, given that your opponent doesn't have Leroy.
This is one of those conditions, one of those times where you play your Leroy, you go all the way around the board to the face. And Trojanator is going to be able to get it done. This Mech Hunter just not able to pick up a win for Nat Rose, really not coming through when she needed it to.
Right.
But Trojanator, after looking like she should have won the previous game and getting that game stolen away from her by 2 bombs off the top, she's actually going to pick up game number 5, and she's going to be our first player moving on to the finals. Congratulations to her. We've so far seen both of her matches today, and
looks like we're going 3 for 3.
I will say, I would not have played that final game that way. I would not have played it nearly as aggressive as she would have. But maybe I wouldn't have won because of that.
Right.
And Mech Hunter is absolutely a deck that you can play very, very aggressively. But those mirrors are just so back and forth that sometimes if you're not also open at least to the idea of trading a little bit here and there and keeping your board sizable so that you can continue to magnetize and continue to push damage, I guess sometimes you're going to cheat yourself out of those options off the top. So getting a little bit lucky there, but certainly playing to those outs. Congratulations to Trojanator. We're going to be seeing her playing against the winner of our second semifinal later on. What'd you think about that set?
I was very happy. It kept me on the edge of my seat going into the end there, especially with the bombs and the mirror at the very end to tie it all together. Overall, I was just very happy with how both players played it. Like you said, they played it sometimes a little more aggressively than you would have, sometimes a little more conservatively than you would have. But at the end of the day, it was just a well-played series, and that's really all I was looking for coming into this. Playing good decks, playing them well, and it paid off in the end. Trojanator going to the finals, and I've been very happy with how she's been playing it so far.
Certainly not perfect on either side. The big thing coming to mind, the Dinomatic with the augmented Elic. But ultimately, that game was won by Nat Rose, so that didn't even really come to matter much. But generally, this is an event where we're encouraging women to participate, to step out of their comfort zones a little bit and come into an environment where they're okay to play competitive sports and competitive Hearthstone, where they can get a little bit more experience against other women in this game. So it's a really fantastic opportunity for them, and it's great to see so many women coming in and taking advantage of this opportunity.
Yeah, I'm just happy to be here, honestly. This is just such a cool event. It's such a cool location. Like I said, we're right next to the beach. There's the ocean right there. There's a surf contest. There's food stalls. There's everything you could possibly want here. And I could not think of a better environment to entice people to get into a competitive scene.
You want to go to the beach? You want to play Hearthstone on the beach?
You want to do both.
You can do that. Ray C tried to do that yesterday. He got horribly sunburned. But we have a tent.
That's the most Ray C thing I've ever heard in my life.
Poor guy.
Poor Ray.
We have a tent.
We love you, Ray.
But yeah, so that's been our first 2 matches of the day. We are going to be, I believe, getting into semifinal number 2. Although with the little break that we took in the middle of semifinal number 1, it did take maybe a little bit longer than we were anticipating. So we'll get back to you when we know the answer to that question of are we going to be playing through semi 2 or are we just going to be going through to the finals. I don't think semifinal 2 has actually happened regardless. So
well, hopefully
we might as well stream it. So expect that one to be coming up. But in the meantime, I think we're going to go to a short break, and when we come back, we're going to find out if we're getting into semifinal number 2. So don't go anywhere. More of Supergirl Gamer Pro's Hearthstone tournament coming right up.
Every superhero has an origin story. We all got our start somewhere. For us, it was the U.S. Air Force.
Nerd Street Gamers is the forefront of community-based gaming in locations expanding throughout the United States. Nerd Street Gamers brings the community, the tournaments, the professional team boot camps, and the celebrities to your backyard.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our day 2 of Supergirl Gamer Pro 2019 here in beautiful, sunny Oceanside, California. Supergirl Surf Pro is powered by Turtle Beach headsets and Rockcat keyboards and mice. For more, visit us in the Gamer Pro Arena. Be sure to swing on by the U.S. Air Force display to check out their Performance Lab trailer, a one-of-a-kind interactive experience packed with challenges that will put your mental and physical skills to the test. Featuring the latest and most advanced technology, like the Oculus Rift and Kinect 2, you'll be able to compete against your friends and airmen as you challenge your body and mind to see how you stack up to Air Force standards. Do you have what it takes? Lenovo Legion is the exclusive hardware provider for Supergirl Gamer Pro. Come visit us in the Esports Festival Village for product demos, giveaways, and a free custom caricature. Nerd Street Gamers is bringing esports to everybody, from in-person competitions to LAN centers coast to coast. Nerd Street Gamers is empowering local communities by making esports more accessible. So right now we are in the semi-finals, one of our semi-finals of our Hearthstone tournament, and I am going to throw it on over to our caster's desk with Songbird and Will Scarlett. Take it away, y'all.
Thank you so much, Abby. Welcome back, everybody, to the desk. My name is Cora Georgiou. I'm joined by Will Scarlett, and we are going to be kicking things off for our second semifinal of the day. Trojanator has already earned her spot in the finals, and now we need to find out who is going to be competing against her for the top prize of a Lenovo laptop. Things have been quite good already. Our previous series was fairly competitive as Hearthstone series go. If you haven't been tuning in this entire time, we are playing Conquest format, which is a bit of a unicorn as far as competitive formats go in Hearthstone right now. Specialist is the top dog, but Conquest is here for a brief appearance. We're playing best of 5. Players have brought 4 decks, and they have since banned one of their opponent's decks. They then have to win with all 3 of their remaining decks. The first player to win with all 3 of their decks wins the series, and we'll be moving on to our finals.
Yeah, I'm really excited just as we progress further and further in this tournament. I like Conquest more and more, which is I already kind of liked it in the first place, but we get to see so many decks that we haven't traditionally seen this meta, or even the past meta, that we haven't seen for quite a while. Like, I'm looking at the lineups that were coming into this next match. I see Paladin, I see Shaman, I see Hunter. 3 things you do not see really a whole lot of in the Specialist format, so I'm just excited to see something new, and just, I like it. It's
Poor
fun.
Priest is
Poor Priest. No format makes that playable.
Making an appearance.
The format was to lose as quickly as possible. Priest
is coming up. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
next expansion, Priest is going to be
It's
good.
gonna be
August
insane.
6th, Saviors of Uldum is coming out. Maybe we'll see Priest bring it back up a little bit then. But for now, at the very least, we're getting a lot of Shaman action, which is not something that we've been seeing much in competitive Hearthstone over the last few months. In particular, we saw Nat Rose bringing a Control Shaman in the previous series, and it worked beautifully. She got a win with it very easily against Mech Hunter, and it looked like a deck that, frankly, I would want to go play, but I already play that deck, so that's probably why.
You don't play the Dragon package, though.
Not the Dragon package, but I'm interested in trying it out. A little bit more mid-range.
Cayenne in the deck right there. Just throwing
spice.
a little picante.
It's, you know what, it's a good opportunity to see players that you will not normally see playing competitive Hearthstone, although, you know, maybe after this you'll start to see some of these names pop up a little bit, and to see decks that you haven't otherwise been able to see other than maybe on Ladder. But even still, Ladder is a lot of Cyclone Mage right now, and I'm not seeing Mage on any of these lineups. These players did not want to play that deck.
Yeah, it was, and the ones who did bring it also got it kind of banned. So I think all the players are kind of aware of the power level that deck provides, which I'm happy that it got banned, because I think at this point we've all seen enough Cyclone Mage. I think we all want to see something
Once
new.
or twice.
But at the same time, you're kind of bummed that it got banned, just because seeing that deck piloted extremely well, there's just something satisfying about it. And that's also, like I said, it's a good deck, so that's one less good deck that you're going to have in your lineup. And in a format where we don't really know what 4 good decks look like in a Conquest, having one less known good deck is a pretty big hindrance.
That is really true, because Conquest format hasn't been played by the most competitive players in the game for the last few months. We don't actually know what this meta really would look like in a solved Conquest format as to what the best 4 decks are to bring, what the ban strategies are. And even in a explored Conquest meta, there's still no perfect lineup.
Right.
Conquest is a very nuanced format. There's a lot of very defined targeting strategies that, if your opponent doesn't bring the deck that you're trying to target, then maybe you're a little bit out of luck. But that's sort of the beauty of the format. It has that ability to target and to be targeted. So it has been actually really nice getting to revisit Conquest format for a little bit here today, and we're going to see who had the best read. I do think preparation is key when you don't have a lot of other examples of what's going on right now and of what to bring. You can't just look at yaytiers.com and see this is the Conquest lineup that Dog brought, so I'm going to bring this. That doesn't exist right now.
Right. And even though we have access to all this data, like, data is only as good as the interpretation of that data. And so even if you were to spend the last several weeks preparing the perfect Conquest lineup, it can only be so good. And especially when you don't have anything to base it off of, because a lot of what is considered the good decks right now are for specialists, which are made very specifically for very specific matchups with very specific sideboard plans for other specific matchups. And so Conquest, you kind of have to be the jack of all trades, being able to go up against anything. So even in a targeted lineup, you still have to kind of hedge your bets a little bit, which is, we talked a little bit earlier, we saw Archivist Elysiana, and it's like, great in Specialist. Conquest, probably not what you want.
All right, making their first appearances on the stream, we have K-Perk up top versus Revi on bottom. Revi, I believe, received a bye to the semifinals because she was one of our highest seeded players in the event, so kudos to her for that. K-Perk did win her first match of the day, but it did happen off stream. So we have a matchup that we've seen twice already today, and it seems to be a very popular one. Mech Hunter for K-Perk and Revi on the Bomb Warrior. This is generally a favorable matchup for the Hunter, although we have seen the Warrior win it so far today.
Yeah, and on the Warrior side of things as well, it looks in rough right now, just because you do have the Augmentic Elec, which is a really nice 3-drop to have. It has 4 HP. It's able to trade usually more than once. But the rest of the hand's not looking so good right now, because the Omega Devastator is basically just going to be a Chillwind Yeti. Dynomatic is mostly a dead card, and Blastmaster Boom doesn't have any bombs in the deck right now and no way of generating them. So that's just a big old dumb 7/7. That's a War Golem right now.
I like War Golem.
President of the War Golem fan club.
No, that sounds like way too much effort to make for War Golem. But Revi, recognizing that Augmented Elec does not have to be played alongside Wrench Caliber or Clockwork Goblin, it's just a well-statted 3-drop, and she needs to use it for tempo in this matchup. This matchup is going to be all about tempo and trying to limit your opponent's space on board. So I would love to see her just jam this Omega Devastator here. Yes, it becomes an incredible card on turn 10, but on turn 4 it's a Chillwind Yeti. And also a mech.
Both of which are very good, and 10 damage in this matchup is not what you were looking for at all. Also, going face with the Elec right now. Very surprised to see that. Didn't want to deny any sort of magnetic plays coming into this next turn. Does she just think she just has such a good hand she can afford to be aggressive?
I'm trying to figure it out. I think this would have been a very easy trade, especially since K-Perk has coin in hand, could coin into War Gear, could play Replicating Menace. I don't want this Ursatron to be able to clear my board with the addition of, magnetized minions. So I would have traded here. For Revi, I think she's used to playing aggressive with this deck, but you really need to consider your hand texture when you make these decisions. She doesn't have any bombs right now. She's very likely going to have to play her Augmented Elec early, so she's not going to be able to use them alongside bombs later on, which means just the natural aggressive nature of her deck is really not great this game.
Right. Also, Dynomatic not only being a dead card in most of the time, this is actually just a detrimental card. It's just only going to kill your Elec, which we saw in the previous series, but just going to be playing another Elec. It's just a whole lot of nothing going on. Like, she has control of the board, which is great, but it's Dynomatics with your dead cards. Captain Greenskin is not a dead card, but it don't have any weapons to upgrade, and this Brawl isn't going to really see a whole lot of play anytime soon, just because she has control of the board. She has no reason to use the removal. And this is a weird situation for the Mech Hunter to be in with this many options. Usually by this point in the game, the Mech Hunter only has like 2 or 3 cards remaining. And they're on a very linear game plan of, I'm going to play whatever cards I have left, deal as much damage as possible, and hopefully I get Leroy off the top. But in this scenario, just options galore.
This is a much bigger hand than we're used to seeing a Mech Hunter ever having this early in the game. But when you're on the coin, you're naturally going to have an additional card in your hand. Ursatron cycles itself, so it's just worked out to be an early game where K-Perk hasn't really had to play much to have an impact on the board.
curious if K-Perk is going to be using the coin on the Venomizer in order to clear off more of this board. I think I would like to see that.
She's just going to counter pressure.
Okay.
This seems a little bit reckless to me. And again, I think this is just an example of these players are used to their decks being very aggressive, but maybe they need to know how to be a little bit more flexible with that game plan.
Right.
You need to be able to trade to not just preserve your life total, but to preserve your minions on the board to then be able to get damage out of those minions later on. Oftentimes, trades preserve health on the board, and then you're able to turn that into maybe even more damage than you sacrificed.
Right. This battle has just been like just a battle of haymakers right now. It's just they've just been throwing left hook, right, just ignoring everything else going on. They're just hitting the face as much as possible, which normally I would say favors the Mech Hunter, but because of the way this game's panned out with Elec into Omega Devastator into Elec into Greenskin, Revy's just been playing minions on curve, and none of their effects have actually activated. Neither of the Elecs have done anything with their effect. Omega Devastator is not 10 mana, so its Battle Cry didn't activate. And Captain Greenskin, there was no weapon to upgrade. These have just been vanilla minions that have just been hitting the face, and it's been working out spectacularly.
Yeah, well, something to consider is if both of these players just go face and have equal amounts of pressure on the board, Revy has access to more life, naturally, by nature of the warrior class. So she's going to take longer to die. She's going to have more time to beat her opponent. And you can see Caper. Unfortunately, the missile launcher does not discriminate based on friendly or enemy minions, so those microbots did get killed. And this is going to just be 12 damage right to face, putting Caper on one bomb off the top of the deck for lethal.
There's only one bomb in the deck. Another one's coming in, but I don't... Trades in the bomb into the Captain Greenskin. The missile launcher... Well, she actually has to kill her own missile launcher because the missile launcher will put her to 3. So
and
she
then
has
the Wrench Caliber will be lethal.
Yeah, so I think she has to use the Zilliax this turn, which is a spectacular play. And I would like to see her kill the Captain Greenskin because I'm all for hitting the face. It's one of my favorite things to do. In fact, I would describe it as a pastime.
One of my favorite hobbies is taking long walks on the beach and hitting people in the face, but not in the way that gets me arrested.
Right. But, okay. Whew. Healing for 7, going back to 11, clearing off the board. Missile launcher going to finish the job here. Just playing a spider bomb because why the heck not? Going to take 1 damage, but basically any minion that Revy plays is going to die to the spider bomb. But potential is in weight.
It's a 50-50 brawl here.
Or okay, never. I was gonna say, do you want to shuffle more bombs into the deck by taking 7, also healing your opponent for 7, and then summoning 2 more boom bots, or do you just take the 2 boom bots? And I think she's just gonna go for the 50-50. I can't blame her.
Brawl.
Gets it.
Massively rewarded here. Revy will not have to give Caper any more life. Although, because that Goblin Bomb did have lifesteal, that's an interesting interaction we may not have seen before. It did actually heal her for the 2.
Yes, it did. And deciding whether she wants to use the Shield Slam or the Wrench Caliber, I actually do like the use of the Shield Slam here, just because at this point...
break points.
Exactly. At this point in the game, you're not gaining any more armor than likely 2 or 4. And so use the Shield Slam when you can. And this also develops more bombs into the deck. So this Boombot, Dr. Boom, is going to be summoning 4 Boombots. It's going to play a little bit more into Unleash the Hounds, but I think she's at a life total where even with Unleash the Hounds, it's not going to be lethal.
You can just Blastmaster Boom and Warpath right away.
Also true.
Also, hitting face and putting Caper from 16 to a factor of 15 is really important because, I guess, a factor of 3 bombs versus 4 bombs to be able to actually finish the game. Looks like instead of going for Blastmaster Boom this turn, Revy is just going to straight up clear the board with that Warpath. I understand wanting to be very defensive, but I think with Blastmaster Boom and Warpath, it's very likely that the board would have been cleared anyway.
Right.
And then you would just have a 7-6 on the board.
Yeah. And there was also a chance that, like, even if something did live, it was going to be like a 0-1 bomb, which, you know, can still be magnetized, but at the end of the day, you're still going to have a 7-6. And with that 7 damage on the board, you can potentially hit face, and then all of a sudden you're just 1 bomb away from lethal.
It's going to be very difficult to find the breathing room to be able to just play Blastmaster Boom by itself without having Dr. Boom Mad Genius up so that the Boom Bots have rush, for instance, or having a Warpath to just activate them immediately. Like right now, she wouldn't feel comfortable playing Boom this turn because there's so much power on board, but thankfully she picked up the Warpath off the top. We're going to see if she actually opts to use it. And it's just the 2 bombs. Because one of the bombs was drawn. She's just going to armor up. So she's at 16. There's 6 on the board. Something like Leroy plus War Gear would be lethal for Caper.
And War Gear is going to push it to 10, 11, 12, 13 damage. Wait.
There's 15 damage.
It's 15?
Yes. 9 from
13.
the double Venomizer War Gear.
War
6
Gear,
on the board.
War Gear, Magnetize, Hero Power, Unleash the Hounds is 16.
Oh yeah, there you go. I was looking at just how much can you possibly magnetize. But Unleash the Hounds is 3.
Plus 5. Yeah, I think she just realized that she missed it.
It would have been 10 damage from the hand with the Unleash the Hounds Hero Power and then the 6 on the board.
Yep.
But the maximum amount that you could magnetize and have damage this turn would have been 15.
All right, putting Dr. Boom to 1 for
There's no reason to make that trade there. No, I think that Caper just realized that she missed lethal and then sort of flubbed a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's one of the real big challenges of playing, you know, on stage, playing on stream. You need to be able to keep your cool even when things go wrong. Because you're going to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. And that's okay. It's just a measure of how well can you grow and respond to those mistakes and not let them bother you.
And especially in the middle of a series, like we were talking about in the last series, Trojanator unfortunately drew 2 bombs in a row, and we're talking about, hey, you still got another game to play. It's anyone's game. You need to come back from this. You need to play your game, and you play it well, and you can't let this get to you. And it's kind of the same principle here. So yeah, you miss lethal, but just play your best game from here on out and see what happens.
With 9 on the board and Caper at 13, Wrench Caliber wouldn't have been lethal for Revy. So Caper absolutely should have sent that 6 damage face set up for Unleash the Hound's Hero Power for lethal.
Right. Because 2 security rovers are going to come out, but one of them is going to have 2 health.
Now it's looking like she's going to be out of range.
Let's see what comes off the top. Ursatron, I mean, it thins the deck 1 closer to Leroy. But just looking at this Unleash the Hounds, it's like you could have come out last turn.
Yeah.
You could have done so much. You were destined for greatness.
And from Caper's perspective, if she can get through these taunts, maybe Revy doesn't have any other way to gain life other than the natural hero power. But we can see with Dr. Boom Mad Genius, she's going to be able to go to 14, minimum 16 if she opts to hero power before playing Dr. Boom.
Right.
And from there, it's looking like Caper is just going to be out of resources. So it's a shame to see that happen, but again, for a lot of these players, this is probably their first time that they're ever playing on stream, the first time maybe even that they're ever playing in a tournament.
Yeah.
So tournament nerves and being on stage, they're very real factors. So I'm just hoping for Caper that she can brush this one off and come back strong.
Also choosing not to go for the extra 2 health on the Dr. Boom, opting to get hopefully just... Obviously, you're looking for 7 armor there, but just getting 3 is just dandy on its own. Gonna get another taunt, or just go face, which that's just absolutely fine, especially because a bomb was drawn. So even if Perk has a way of dealing with one of the 2 damage minions, the other one is going to clear that up just fine. So game number 1 going on over to Revy.
Yeah, bit of a shame. Caper did have lethal a couple turns back with the Unleash the Hounds instead of the double Venomizer, but she, you know, it can be very easy to think, okay, my magnetic minions double as damage. I already need to remember that I can magnetize them onto existing mechs and then have more damage than it seems like I should have. And if you can maybe tunnel a little bit on it and see and think, okay, I have 15 damage with these mechs and that's almost lethal but not quite, and shoot, I don't have it, completely ignoring the fact that you haven't Unleashed the Hounds in your hand and that equals 3 damage versus a Venomizer that's 2, and you still have the mana that you need to be able to get that done. Yeah, it happens, absolutely. So for Caper, it's only game number 1. She has a lot of time now to be able to overcome that bit of a flub, and Granted, that was a matchup she would have liked to have won, but Mech Hunter is certainly a deck that we've seen struggle at other times over the course of this weekend. So that wasn't a guaranteed matchup that she was going to win.
Well, going on to the other side of things, Revy is incredibly happy to get that matchup out of the way, which is actually kind of interesting because I think that's the third time we've seen the matchup, and I think that's also the third time the Bomb Warrior has won.
Yeah, second or third.
Yeah, and so kind of everything's getting flipped on its head today. It's matchups that are unfavorable are getting won, and in Conquest, when you get that out of the way, it feels so good. To be able to start up 1-0, and you're like, oh, I don't have to worry about Bomb Warrior anymore, and I don't have to worry about it, especially against the Mech Hunter. I have to beat it with my other decks, but your other decks, statistically, are going to be much more favored against that deck.
Yeah, you have to imagine. That's probably one of the worst matchups for Warrior, but that's really saying something. You know, one of the worst matchups for Bomb Warrior is still a matchup where Bomb Warrior is probably going to win about 40% of the time. It's just a very resilient class right now, and a class that is inherently defensive in nature, but has so much aggressive potential right now. So we are going to be seeing our first Paladin and our first Rogue up on stream today, and it's going to be Caper on the Mech Paladin, Revy on the Rogue, and if I'm playing Rogue, that's a hand I'm very happy to see. She kept the sap, understanding that this is a matchup where the Paladin is going to want to magnetize a lot of mechs onto a single minion. It's going to be very, very big, very, very scary, but sap doesn't care how scary your minion is. It's going to send it right back to the hand, and it only sends the base minion. So for instance, if you have a Skaterbot on the board that you magnetize a War Gear onto and you sap it, you only get the Skaterbot back in your hand. The War Gear is treated as a buff card.
But I really like this use of Crystallology in this deck because a lot of the times we've seen Crystallology is being used in the Shivala decks, in these combo decks, in order to thin out your deck, draw more cards, get the answers that you need. But this is being used in a very aggressive deck, a very aggressive mech deck that we don't really traditionally see. A lot of the mech paladins you see are more mid-range, much more combo-oriented. With that Mechano Egg that you saw earlier in the opening hand. But like you said, Skaterbot was not expecting that at all in this mech paladin.
Crystallology having been buffed in the recent buff patch, it made this deck a possibility. This deck was much, much too slow. Having Crystallology for 2 mana was just... You didn't want to have to do that. You wanted to play Galvanizer on turn 2. You want to have something on the board on turn 1. And Crystallology being able to find those support mechs like Skaterbot to give a mech rush, or taunt like Bronze Gatekeeper, it just means that you have access to so many more resources, and it makes the deck much more viable. But even still, Rogue has been nerfed as of late, and it's still probably 3rd best deck in the game.
It's easily up there. The preparation nerf was unfortunate, but at the end of the day, you're still making 2 lackeys from this Evil Miscreant, and that is just so good, especially with the, I want to say the discovery of, the shark, or low of the shark. Wait, the shark. What's it called?
Spirit of the Shark.
Spirit of the Shark. I was like, what's that first word? Spirit of the Shark makes the deck just so much more viable, so much more value-oriented. Get big Edwins, get more lackeys. King Togwaggle giving you 2 treasures. There's just so many things you can do. But this is kind of an older version because you still see the preparation and the raiding party, which kind of fell off the face of the earth when the raiding party nerf hit, just because everyone kind of realized you don't really need raiding party.
You don't.
You draw a lot, but it's still a great card. It's still very nice.
There are 2 distinct versions of Tempo Rogue right now. There's Shark Rogue, which utilizes additional battle cries, and there is this more aggressive style Pirate Rogue. So the aggressive one plays Deckhands, plays Dread Corsairs, plays Raiding Party. It's a much more face deck than the Battle Cry Rogue, which is it's going to take a little bit longer, but eventually you have Life Drinker Battle Cries activating twice, and you're probably playing Sea Giant in that deck, and I would say that deck is just much more well equipped to go long. I have to say, this worked out well for Revy, but I did not love the way that she set this up. I thought that the coin waggle pick and just leaving the waggle pick, you're running the risk of your opponent having weapon removal, but in Paladin they're probably not running it, so it's a low risk, but it is still a risk that exists. And she could have just... Well, generally, the way that I think about it is if you can play your Evil Miscreant, you probably should. But the way that this did pan out by Caper putting 2 additional health onto that taunt was that Deadly Poison plus the SI7 agent meant it was the perfect amount to clear, and it was a good thing then that she saved the Deadly Poison as a combo activator for the SI7 agent.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there with if you can Evil Miscreant, you probably should, just because that card is so good even after it got its health nerfed a little bit. especially with the Waggle pick, you definitely want to get it down to that one charge so you get the bounce effect off of it. You get even more lackeys, because the sooner you get the lackeys, the more you can, the sooner you get to develop a game plan, just because the lackeys definitely change what your game plan does.
Well, this is an opportunity for Revy to have a really powerful turn with Preparation, Raiding Party, and Evil Miscreant, and then potentially can bounce back the Evil Miscreant with that Waggle pick.
Or you just play the Z word.
Yeah, you just keep clearing.
Good. Puts a taunt in the way, heals you back up. Alright, I guess we're having a discounted Ziliax. Can't say I hate it, but I can't say I like it either.
I don't love it. I think that Revy is undervaluing lackeys this game. That's not something you ever want to do. Lackeys are incredibly powerful. The reason that Evil Miscreant is one of the best cards in Rogue is because it is one of the easiest way to generate lackeys. And lackeys are very, very useful in Rogue. Ethereal lackey means you could find additional saps. You could find additional damage. Can't find Vanish anymore. That did rotate to the Hall of Fame alongside Mind Blast.
Rest in peace. To Mind Blast, not Vanish. Vanish, I don't care about it. Mind Blast, that was my boy.
We had some good times. Prophet Velen.
But yeah, like you said,
sobbing in the corner.
Cries in Zed a lot.
Gosh. He's living the divine spirit in our fire life right now. He's finding some outlets for his sadness.
But I do want to touch on this. A point you made is Evil Miscreant's one of the best lackey generations just because you don't really have to sacrifice anything to do it. Because a lot of the other classes that make lackeys, such as Warlock, for example, you have to sacrifice minions in order to get lackeys consistently. Shaman, you have to overload yourself to get lackeys consistently. Rogue, you just do what Rogue did already, which is just you play cheap stuff and then you combo it. There's no sacrifice. Sometimes you can get in awkward situations where you're going first, you don't have any cheap things, and it sits in your hand for a while. But that is few and far between. More often than not, this is going off very quickly, and then with those lackeys, you generate enough value, enough tempo. You get ethereal lackeys, you get witchy lackeys. All of a sudden, you got this board, and you got more spells, and all of a sudden, everything's getting out of control, and your opponent's dead.
Yeah, I think that Revy is playing very defensively, which you have to. You have to keep the mechs off of the board so that they can't just immediately magnetize additional mechs and then hit you in the face for a ton of damage. But Rogue is an aggressive deck by nature, and you do need to find sort of that spot where you can apply your own pressure and where you can say, okay, for a second, if you go really big on a minion, I have sap as my backup, and I'm okay with that.
Sure.
Because it's turn 7 and Evil Miscreant is still in hand. And, I mean, she's able to generate some additional stuff with the Raiding Party. This Edwin's going to be big, but it hurts me to see Evil Miscreant not have been played by now. I think there has to be another way that maybe she could have even been further ahead by this point. But it does seem like this was the first opportunity where she's really thought about, I need to flip the script right now and I need to become the aggressor. So I like that she's thinking that way. I just almost wish it had happened earlier.
Right, and when she played, as soon as she played the sap first, prior to the preparation, I kind of knew what she was going for, and I just don't like it. This was going to be such a cool turn where preparation the sap, got rid of that big taunt, played a Evil Miscreant, got a lackey, would likely be able to play one of the lackeys, and then play that into the Edwin. So we would have had, kind of a much bigger board. We would have had the Miscreant out. We would have had another lackey in the hand to follow it up. A lot of things could have happened last turn that didn't, and now I think she might get a little bit punished for it.
Or like she's just gonna have an 8/8 Edwin on the board that she's able to smork with.
Smorking is good.
I think she has to go. I think if there's going to be Ziliax on the side of Caper, Revy's probably not going to win the game anyway. So send your stuff face.
Right.
You have 14 damage.
2 ethereal lackeys. As far as I'm concerned, those are 2 more eviscerates. This is the power of Evil Miscreant. Imagine if this was coming down on like turn 4 or 5 and you had these 2 ethereal lackeys. Then you can develop spells in your hand that would perfectly counter. You can find more saps. You can find, even stuff like Friendly Escape to bounce everything back to your hand. Play more lackeys. Daring Escape. Thank you very much. But now
this forces Caper to play defensively. That Crystology might have another Bronze Gatekeeper in it. It could have a couple Glowtrons, I believe.
Yeah, I'm assuming
maybe
she's
another
running 2
Galvanizer.
Gatekeepers.
Yeah, there you
2
go.
for 2. Very good.
That Gatekeeper's really pivotal. I do think there was a chance that she missed on it, and then she wouldn't have any way to stop this swing from the Waggle pick.
Now there's a taunt in the way. Ethereal Lackey has a lot of things potentially that could happen to get through this. Sap obviously.
Is going to be lethal. Eviscerate is going to be lethal.
Back
shot lethal?
Stab is not enough because even with the Captain Green Skin, you're going to be 1 off. So potentially,
There's Sap.
There it is.
That's the game. And Revy, like I was saying, for my personal taste, I think that she could have maybe even gone aggressive a little bit earlier, but that Edwin pickup was the signal for her to make a big minion, force your opponent to have to deal with it, and if they can't, you're hitting them for 16 damage over the course of 2 turns. So it does seem like she's got some serious familiarity with that deck, and even with that matchup, you saw her keep the Sap in her opening hand, and that was really necessary for her to win that game.
I think as far as the lines she took, we can talk about those all day because Rogue is one of those classes where branching past while being a Druid card is the best way to describe the Rogue. It's just like every single turn, it's like you have options A, B, and C, and then because you made option A, it's like you have another D, E, F, G the next turn, and it's just, there's so many different ways to play out every single game that you could just talk about it forever. But at the end of the day, I really would have liked to have seen the Evil Miscreant come out a little earlier, but at the end of the day, the W is a W.
I also couldn't tell you exactly when I wanted to see it come out, so I'm not the one up there playing.
Turn 3.
Yeah, turn 3 turn 2. Could have been turn 2. All right, but it is going to actually be Revy now piloting her Mech Paladin, and Caper is going to be on a Shaman deck. A lot of Shaman we've been seeing today, and it looks like this is your fairly standard Murloc Shaman. With the inclusion of the Hench Clan Hogsteeds, of course, that does Death Rattle into a Murloc, so you get additional attack onto a Murloc Tidecaller from that. With Bloodlust, it's just good removal, so it's a fine inclusion in the deck.
Yeah, and I think this is going to play out very similarly to the Mech Hunter versus Control Shaman matchup, where even against the Hunter is much more aggressive than the Paladin iteration of the 2 mechs decks. Hunter is much more aggressive, and even it struggles to get there against Control Shaman. And so if you play a slow, much more mid-range deck where it's relying on getting a lot of value out of these eggs against a deck that very likely is probably going to have Hexes and Earthshocks, it's going to be a tall order for sure. But potentially if...
This Shaman deck doesn't have Hex and Earthshock, and it will.
Wait, doesn't?
No, absolutely not. Murloc Shaman, maybe it runs an Earthshock, but it's not running Hex. You're going to be seeing... possibly the Thunderhead package with Voltaic Burst and with the Sludge Slurper. You're probably having 2 Bloodlusts. Seeing Hagatha the Witch, I bet there's Swamp Queen Hagatha and Shudderwalk at the top end. That's been the very popular build as of late. None of them are running Hex. Some of them are running Earthshock.
Casting today has taught me anything is I don't assume anything. A lot of wacky stuff has happened.
People who assume.
They draw 2 bombs.
They draw 2 bombs. They assume they win and they draw bombs. That feels bad, man. But even still, this deck just has a way of getting so much stuff on the board. They do have Toxfin, which is going to be the big method of clearing up a large minion that Revy has had to take quite a while and a lot of resources to be able to develop. So I still think it's a fine matchup for the Shaman just because they are on the board so much faster than the Paladin is.
Sure.
But certainly if they had Hex, I think this matchup would be much simpler.
Right, and I would have liked to have seen the Mechano Egg there, I think, just because I think Ziliax came out just a smidgen too soon. You didn't get the full amount of healing from it because you only healed for 1. And also,
you have to take damage at some point.
Exactly, and it's either going to happen now or later, and when you're at 29, you can afford to take it now, especially when the payoff later is going to be so gigantic. Also,
especially when you're going to heal back a lot of your life with Ziliax, probably. Right. And by playing mechs by themselves, you're making Kangor's Endless Army a lot worse, which is something you're hoping to find off of Prismatic Lens.
Because imagine if this Mechano Egg... Because also, off that spell, you keep all the upgrades that your mechs have had. And so if you play a Mechano Egg and then you Ziliax it, and then he has to waste all his resources getting through it, then you play that again, they just can't do anything. Murlocs can only deal so much damage, especially with creature combat. It would have to be something like a Hex or a Earthshock off a Hagatha. Look, but that's just not an option anymore.
Playing this Paladin deck is scary. You're going to have to commit to Glowstone Technician. You're going to have to commit to Mechano Egg. You're playing all of these minions that don't do anything when they enter the board, really, to impact the board.
Right.
But you're doing it because it's going to make your future turns so much better. And you're going to be at a board deficit early, and you're going to be at a life deficit. But this deck is so good at finding that point of stabilization.
Right.
Say you have Ziliax in hand, now it's a a 5/4 instead of a 3/2. You can put a 3/3 skater bot onto it that you've made free from your galvanizer that's also a 3/4 now. Suddenly you're doing these incredible things that you wouldn't have been able to do if you didn't take that time to set those up. And it's scary to have to take that time, but that's what you're committing to with this deck.
Right. You said Ziliax is a 5/4, and it just made me happy. Like, just thinking about it. Getting
There
those
should
extra
not be a
4 stats.
5-mana 5/4 with Taunt, Divine Shield, Rush, and Lifesteal, but there could have been.
Could have been. Not anymore. It wasn't meant to be.
And it's very likely that even had Revy gone for the Mechano Egg on turn 4, that it wouldn't have mattered, because
Right.
Capers had very, very good outcomes from this Underbelly Angler. She's got another one in hand. She's got the Toxfin on the board. That Underbelly Angler could give her another Toxfin or another War Leader. There's only so many Murlocs in the game, after all.
And I wonder if Revy's going to spot this. This is actually a really cool interaction. She can give the egg Rush, and then if she really wanted to, she could run it into the poison, killing it, and then getting the 8/8.
The Robo-Sword.
But that's a lot of stats you're investing, because the Skater Bot is a 3/3, and basically by upgrading the egg and giving it +3/+3, you're basically sacrificing an 8/8 worth of stats to get an 8/8 worth of stats, if that makes sense. Basically, you would have a 5/10, so it's one less stat.
And this is a really difficult situation because that Poisonous is priority, but the War Leader and the Underbelly Angler are more of a priority. So Revy says here, you know what, if you want to kill my egg and my Robosaur, it's going to take quite a bit for you to be able to do that.
Right.
But I need to make sure that you're not generating more Murlocs because, frankly, Revy's running out of stuff.
And also, I think with the Kobold Lackey, that's just lethal.
Yeah,
it's
it's
exactly
just,
17.
17
And this goes back to the previous turn that we were talking about. Had Revy saved the Ziliax, potentially could have a huge, that would have been a 7/9 taunt with Lifesteal, Divine Shield. Murloc ain't getting through that anytime soon.
No, and at the very least, it's going to have to bump off the Divine Shield, and then something with Poisonous from the Toxfin has to clear it up. But at that point, you're gaining 14 life from that interaction. So it's a difficult deck to play because it is so easily countered by so much. You will never beat Cyclone Mage or Freeze Mage with that deck. They lock down your board, and you cannot interact with them from hand, really. That Paladin deck isn't playing Equality Consecration, for instance. It's not playing Avenging Wrath. Sometimes you have True Silver, but all of your damage pretty much is going to be coming from your minions. So freezes, they get you. Sap, clearly, they get you. And in this case, just being swarmed and not having time to respond or having minions on the board to respond, because again, that's the only way you're going to respond, they get you. So it's a bit of a rough game for Revy there, but she's got now another opportunity here if she wants to take it, and it is going to be the Paladin versus the Hunter. Again, Revy up 2-1. She's just got to win one game with this Paladin deck. Caper needs to beat it twice more.
There's another spell that I don't think I've actually ever seen in the deck. The twin spell, give a friendly minion Lifesteal.
Lightforged Blessing.
Was not expecting that in this mech deck, which maybe thinking that she has 2 copies of those would change the way you would prioritize your Ziliax. Because you have other forms of Lifesteal in the deck.
Yeah.
But
it's personal preference whether you want to run 1 or 2. But generally, this deck is just going to make such a big minion that if for 2 mana you can heal back to full from 10, it's probably worth it. Sometimes you'll even see this deck playing Faceless Manipulator because your minions just get so big, and if they stick, now you have 2 of them. But there's a lot of win more cards, we like to call them, in this deck. And if you don't get to that point of advantage on the board, it's really hard to use them.
Speaking of 2-ofs, Galvanizer coming down, the 1-2 punch, that is a 3-mana Mechano Egg, a free Skater Bot, and I believe that is an Anoyo module?
Yes, correct.
Yes, forgot.
2 mana, 2/4 Divine Shield Taunt.
Yeah. Knew the stats, just forgot the last word in the name, but I got it. Nailed it. Prismatic Lens, unfortunately not going to be able to draw the big 7-cost payoff that they're looking for. It's honestly trying to think what actually could switch that would be a
Christology,
pretty big
Lightforged Blessing.
And then what would that switch? Ziliax would actually be a pretty cool.
Ziliax. Sometimes they play Missile Launcher.
That'd be really cool.
The Mechano Egg.
Right.
There's a fair bit of big stuff.
Yeah.
And generally, the more that Revy magnetizes onto one minion, the better Kangor's Endless Army will be later on in the game. But this is very consistent with the way that she's been playing this entire series. Very aggressive. She could have taken a nice trade onto the Ursatron, bopped off the Divine Shield, but she's not wasting any time.
Yeah, really wants this game to be over with, I think, as quickly as possible. I think it's hard to say just because I think based off her deck list, I think she's able to go long. I think she might be thinking about, like, the longer this game goes on, I think it favors the Hunter because of that hero power. It just gets that chip damage in. I'm not going to be able to keep up. But at the same time, she has access to copious amounts of lifesteal, and she also already has, you know, the big payoff of the deck in hand already. So she only needs to live a couple more turns before she gets this huge mech board.
This matchup for the Mech Hunter is entirely revolving around Venomizer and Spider Bomb. You need to be able to remove minions while still developing your own minions.
Right.
Sometimes you just don't have the opportunity to do that. But without those cards, you don't really win.
Another reason I think she probably didn't trade off the Ursatron is because she does have the Spellbreaker in the hand, which is one of the few forms of silence that we've seen this entire tournament. And I think having that, she knows she doesn't want to trade into the Ursatron because she's going to be able to silence it and deny that little bit of extra value. But man, there are so many good targets for this Spellbreaker. I don't think you want to use it on just a 4-1.
I don't think I want to use it this turn. I'm not terribly worried about Caper getting another mech. I just want to develop my own board if I'm Revy in this position. Right. And the fact that you can immediately send this Mechano Egg over the Ursatron, get it closer to dying and bringing out that Robosaur, which is an 8/8 mech, sounds good to me.
Right.
Revy could even magnetize the Glowtron onto the Galvanizer and clear up the upgradable Framebot if she wanted to, but a little late for that now.
Right, would have really liked to see the trade with the Galvanizer on the 2-1, just because that makes the trade so much more awkward for Perk. Because if you just leave the upgradable Framebot, that's fine, because if they upgrade it, like, that upgraded thing still has to trade into a 3-2.
Yeah.
And so this just makes it so much cleaner for Perk, and is going to be able to follow it up with kind of whatever they want. Clear off with the Bomb Toss, develop a Spider Bomb, which is going to make the 8/8 coming out of this egg just that much more awkward.
Yeah, having the Mechano Egg on the board as a deterrent to, like, Missile Launcher Venomizer later on, or just to Spider Bomb existing, is really great, actually. You want to be able to have pressure through removal from the Hunter.
A lot of decisions. A lot of decisions. This is, like we said, not really what you expect from a Mech Hunter at this point. They usually just kind of flood out the board. You're not really sure what's going to come off the top of your deck. Definitely is. Another reason I'm really liking this Conquest right now. See matchups that you don't get to see. Also, choosing not to magnetize, playing around silence. Really like to see that as well. Missed out on some damage.
It's actually really intelligent by Caper to do that. She did miss out on damage, but she's diversifying her power on board, making it so that she has potentially 2 threats instead of 3. That's intelligent.
Smart play, and that's what we like to see in the semifinals.
You like to see that, Will. But even still, it's going to be a long road for Caper with that Kangor's Endless Army that we can see in hand for Revy. Bomb Toss plus the Spider Bomb magnetized this turn is a beautiful clear, though.
Trade it right into the 6-2. 8/8's now dead. Goodbye, Dinosaur.
And hello, board advantage again.
Not expecting to say that for the Hunter anytime soon.
Caper set up those couple of turns really, really well.
List Manipulator.
Yeah.
Hello.
Like I said, you probably are going to see it in this deck. This Kangor's Endless Army is really what Revy is trying to ride to the victory here.
Oh.
And if it does not come through, she's going to be having a rough time.
How about a 1-mana Missile Launcher?
Yeah, it's nice. That's a 5/7 with the Glowtron as well. And honestly, hitting Crystology and making it cost 6 mana is fine because you're trying to close out the game with Faceless Manipulator and Kangor's Endless Army.
Right,
but
she's not playing Prismatic Lens to make her spells, like, she's doing it to make the minions cheaper.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
Obviously, the counter effect of that is your spells are now going to be more expensive, but we don't care because we just played a 1-mana Missile Launcher.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Hit me.
If Revy goes for, say, Kangor's Endless Army this turn, Caper can just counter with Missile Launcher Venomizer. If Revy goes for Faceless Manipulator this turn, she can clear the board And then Venomizer Missile Launcher won't necessarily be a full clear.
Sure.
When Kangors comes out, because she might actually just have to use it early to clear up the faceless manipulated missile launcher. But it does look like she is going to go for Kangors this turn, and very luckily she hits that Mechano Egg.
Right.
So there will be a Robosaur left around, because I don't really see any other option for Caper here other than Venomizer plus the launcher.
Yeah, it's going to make...
And actually, if she had done this slightly differently, Caper could have magnetized Missile Launcher and Venomizer onto a Goblin Bomb, traded over the Galvanizer, and then traded Boommaster Flark over the egg, and that would have been a full board clear.
Unfortunately, now there's going to be an 8-8 remaining, and that's going to be pushing a lot of damage. She's only going to have 5 health remaining. I don't think the Paladin has access to direct damage outside of potentially a True Silver champion.
Usually.
But
Magnetize, magnetize, magnetize. What's that call to adventure have inside of it, for instance? What's in the box?
What's in the box? But this Faceless Manipulator can also just go...
Ooh, boy.
That's a lot of
so
healing.
Good. You can just Lightforge Blessing and Faceless. Or if Revy just wants to ride this Robosaur to the finish line, this works as well. It was good ordering by Caper to play the Missile Launcher and then magnetize the Venomizer onto it instead of the Venomizer then the Missile Launcher. Plays around Silence.
A lot more stats on the board this way, but unfortunately your opponent has an 8-8 lifesteal. And you don't really have a way of dealing with it too well. You have a Spider Bomb now, but if you magnetize the Spider Bomb onto the Missile Launcher, you can't trade it into the Spellbreaker and go for the 50-50. So now you're kind of stuck, but I think replicating Menace, Spider Bomb, kill the 8-8, and then hope you hit the 4-3.
Yeah, you have to. At the very least, if the Robosaur dies, there's no mechs on the board.
Yeah, so Magnetize is not out. But this is just... It's definitely rough. Just between the Crystallology, which is going to draw... Even though it costs 6, it's still 2 more minions that are going to be in play. And also,
that is the fortunate outcome for Caper.
Exactly what you wanted to happen. Call to Adventure is going to get the lowest cost minion and give it 2/2. And I think there's probably another Glowtron. 1/3.
Yep. Now 3/5.
That's a 3/5. Play it again. Another 1-drop. Skaterbot.
Question is, does she want to perhaps hold until she can play the Faceless Manipulator with these mechs on the next turn? Probably not. You probably can't afford to.
Right. Well, it's either this or Hero Power, and... Oh! Was not expecting it to put it on the Glowtron. I did have 2 separate minions.
Either way, you have 2 sources of damage. She's seen both Spider Bombs.
Sure. And I guess by doing this, it does play around Unleash the Hounds, and you're pretty confident that there's no thing like Deadly Shot. So this is fine. Fortunately, Ziliax is picked up for Kefurg. Interesting, Ziliax is going to magnetize and heal, but then Revy can just counter that by Faceless manipulating the Ziliax again. And then it's not going to deal... Wait, it's going to lose its Divine Shield. Because, so the Faceless Manipulator is not going to have the Divine Shield, so it's going to get the full heal.
No, but you could just trade it over.
Or it goes...
And then it would let the Glowtron...
This is actually really interesting, is if Kapurko's face is going to keep the Divine Shield, we will make the Faceless Manipulator keep Divine Shield, which will make Kapurk heal less overall.
Yes. Sort of.
Hello, Leroy. Looks like it's going to trade into the 6/7. Alrighty. So, Faceless Manipulator is going to make a 4/3.
You can Faceless Manipulator and magnetize the Snip Snap onto the Microbot, trade it over, and then you don't lose your Microbot.
At the same time, you are at 28 health. So, I wouldn't even mind just Snip Snapping 3 times.
Yeah. I would probably do 2 stacked and then 1 by itself, but it looks like she's going to go all 3 on onto the same Snip Snap. That's definitely something you have to consider when you're playing this card is, do I want 3 2/3s, 1 4/6, and a 2/3, or do I want a 6/9?
I think in this context, I think it might be better to make the 6-9 just because let's assume that Kavert just puts all the pants on this lifesteal as much as possible. You're going to want a big Titan of your own to fight against their Titan.
Yeah. I was thinking I liked the Faceless in the previous turn because I don't want K-Perk to be able to magnetize onto this Microbot and heal a bunch of life. Revy's running out of resources. So, I mean, this pretty much has to do it for her. So I like the thought of getting that lifesteal off of the board and knowing better how much damage you have to deal ultimately.
And this is the punish for stacking it all on the same one, like you said. Now this missile launcher is just going to clear up the board just beautifully. Unfortunately, this Faceless Manipulator is going to be able to clear if Revy decides to.
You have to.
But
you don't have a choice.
Wait, I think the Crystallology potentially has... I think there's one more Skater bot. Potentially.
Yeah, you only have so much mana to work with after that, though.
Oh yeah, it does cost 6, but if you draw a Galvanizer and a Skater bot, that is a clear.
Yeah, I think if Revy had gone for the Faceless in the previous turn instead of Faceless plus Snip Snap, or even just Faceless and leave the Snip Snap, she wouldn't have had to deal with K-Perk being back at 27. She would have been at like 15. That's a very different scenario.
Let me think.
All right, how well does Revy know her deck? Because if she only has one attack minion left, and this Crystallology is probably not going to be the play you want. You're probably just going to want to play War Gear and Faceless Manipulator, clear off this board, try to apply some amount of pressure. Wait. That can target the enemy?
Now, yes. Well, remember, when you're playing Faceless Manipulator, it's Battlecry transform this minion into a copy of another minion on the board.
Would it make a 1/1?
No, it would make an 11-2.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it would have rush.
It is just a... It would, yes.
Yeah, okay. That's why we want a 5/5.
We don't.
Okay, I thought you were arguing. I thought you were saying...
No,
okay,
we want an 11-2.
Okay.
No. Oh, you absolutely want a Faceless Manipulator. That Microbot. That mighty Microbot. Absolutely. That's got 3 1/1s in it as a Death Rattle. That has Lifesteal. That has Rush. You Faceless it, you clear, you have 3 1/1s, you magnetize the War Gear.
So this California heat's getting to me. I thought you were trying
to...
I thought you were trying to tell me this 5/5 was the correct play.
No, I think that's just Revy... kind of an oversight on her part. Revy forgetting that you can Faceless your opponent's minions, maybe.
Right.
This has to be Crystallology and Lightforged Blessing.
Yeah, just because...
And then you can Glowstone the 1-drops next turn.
This Glowstone has to get some sort of value. You can't just play it with no minions in your hand.
I guess 1-attack minions. It's not actually 1-drops that are left.
2 Gatekeepers.
You could play one of those. But Venomizer is a card.
I think I would rather give my War Gear Lifesteal and save these taunts. Just to get the maximum amount of value out of this Glowstone. But Revy is very consistent in this pushing face plan.
There's very few cards left in deck for both players, actually.
I'm trying to think what are the big payoffs remaining. I think there's going to be another egg for Revy.
You need to be able to activate it, though.
Yeah. Which you would be able to if she holds on to one of these taunts, but I don't think she can really afford to because she's at 9 HP. And this is what I was talking about. If in a top decking situation, oh my.
She could just go egg plus bronze. I think I would have liked to see egg plus bronze, and then you can Lightforged Blessing onto the Robosaur. I think Revy's just playing this a little too fast.
A little bit. But
there's definitely decisions to be made here. But even still, what does K-Perk have left? She played her Boommaster Flark already, didn't she?
She did.
She played both
I think she
Earthatons.
still has
She's
2
played
War
her
Gears.
Leroy. She's down to pretty much her hero power. And this Lightforged onto the Bronze Gatekeeper is going to heal quite a bit. So even though I think this could have been a smoother road for Revy, I think she's still got more than enough aggression here to be able to win this. This is going to heal for
a lot. So
7 initially, but then also 4.
Again. There are 6 again because it also hits face.
No, you're right. Yeah, there we go. 6 additional.
So what I was about to say was this hero power is going to be huge in this matchup just because Revy's down to 7. And that's just a couple turns away from being dead, but now that's not a thing. Hero power is not really going to come into effect anytime soon just because Revy is healing for quite a bit. 7 per attack, and then whatever minions are on the board is just gravy on top of that. Sure, play your
Caper's
goblin bombs.
Trying to close this one out, but she's just not going to be able to do it. This is going to be another 7 from the attack of the Bronze Gatekeeper, and then another 6 from the effect of it at the end of the turn.
Prismatic
Would have liked to
wins.
see the Prismatic first. That could have just been lethal.
It
would have been lethal.
No, never play it. Oh.
Don't admit that you missed it.
Yeah. First rule of being a competitive Hearthstone player: if you misplay, never show the card that shows your misplay.
Man. So a slight miss lethal there for Revy, but ultimately not going to matter. And she is going to take her series, sending her through to the finals. She's going to be playing against Trojanator, picking up a win with that Mech Paladin in game number 4. Congratulations to her, taking a 3-1 victory here in this series. Well played by Caper. It seems like she's taking it all in good stride. It seems like she had a lot of fun up there.
Right.
And it was really, really nice to get to see some Mech Paladins in action.
Yeah, exactly. And this is kind of what I was alluding to at the beginning, is we don't get to see these decks fairly often because of Specialist format. It's a very, I would describe it as top of tier 3, maybe bottom of tier 2 in terms of the strength of the deck compared to what is we can traditionally see. But Conquest allows the bottom of tier 2, top of tier 3, those kind of decks, power levels to really shine in this kind of matchup. And so we get to see Mech Paladin, we see Murloc Shaman, we see Mech Hunter, we get to see all these cool things, and it's all culminating to these finals where we're going to see a lot of cool matchups that we don't normally get to.
Yeah, we've got Trojanator with a Mech Hunter, a Token Druid, a Murloc Shaman, and a Bomb Warrior. Then we've got Revy with that Mech Paladin that we just saw. She's got that Mech Hunter as well. It's a Mech fest all around.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly the Rise of the Mechs little event that happened after Rise of Shadows, adding Snip Snap into the game and buffing certain cards like Crystology, for instance, which is what gives the Mech Paladin its validity right now, was very impactful in maybe a non-specialist format.
Right.
It's interesting to see.
I think that's another reason why I like just not only Conquest, but just the design team in general, just like adding cards like that, just like in the middle of the season.
Love it.
Like, they're like, mechs aren't in a weird place right now. Snip Snap. Crystology and like 20 other cards, I want to see more of them. Buff them all.
I think
just see what happens.
I think the nature of the specialist format and the fact that those buffs did just make some already powerful decks more powerful meant that they didn't change up the meta as much as they could have. I think it certainly would have been more impactful in a Conquest format. But I love that they're setting the precedent that they are willing to do things like this. That it doesn't need to just be nerfing cards, but that we can buff cards too and bring cards that we really like back into the light because they're being made better. So that's really fantastic. But our finals is going to be Revy versus Trojanator. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to get set up and get right into our finals of Supergirl Gamer Pro.
Every one of us starts out as a wide-eyed recruit, myself included. If I could go back, I'd tell that kid, get ready. You're going to serve alongside some amazing people. They're going to become like family to you. And together, you'll see and do things that will help change the world. That'll change you. One day, you're going to look up and be a better you. And this nation will be better for it too. I'm General Dave Goldfiend. Come join us. Your nation is waiting.
...2018 was a big year for us here at Nerd Street Gamers. But it was an even bigger year for you, the gamers, the athletes, the casuals with aspirations to become better, bigger, become pro. And we gave you the opportunities with summer camps, boot camps, weeklies, monthlies, and of course tournaments. Tournaments with over $200,000 in prize money. We made gaming more accessible, not only in Philadelphia, but in Denver with a brand new 18,000 square foot state-of-the-art esports arena. And we've only just begun.
And welcome back to our day 2 of Supergirl Gamer Pro 2019 here in beautiful sunny Oceanside, California. I am your host, Abby Sherlock, aka Sherlock Homie. Supergirl Surf Pro is powered by Turtle Beach and Rock Hat. Be sure to check out the new Recon Spark at the Turtle Beach booth in the Supergirl Pro Arena. Are you savage enough to win? We've got some great prizes for our Hearthstone tournament, including a Lenovo Legion laptop, gaming accessories, and Bluetooth speakers. Tournament winners will be announced later here in the Supergirl Gamer Pro Arena. Today's gamers are enjoying the comforts of using DX Racer's Racing Series gaming chairs. DX Racer is the #1 gaming chair used by gamers around the world. Check them out at dxracer.com. Now, we're going to get started and finish up our Hearthstone tournament. I will be passing it on over to Songbird and Will Scarlet, and let's see them back at the end.
Thanks so much, Abby. Welcome back, everybody, to the desk. My name's Cora. I'm joined by Will, and we are ready now to get our finals underway. It's going to be Trojanator versus Revy. We saw Trojanator in our first 2 matches of the day, and we just saw Revy, her first match of the day, because she did receive a bye through to the semifinals due to her seeding and her current rank in Hearthstone. and we saw her pick up a win versus K-Perk, and now she will be joining Trojanator in the finals. Looks like it's going to be a good series.
Right, absolutely. And don't let anyone tell you ladder doesn't matter, because they got to buy.
It mattered here.
Exactly. But I think both these players, while being very proficient in the decks that they brought, also noticed very confident in the decisions that they're making. It's even if we decided that it's unorthodox or maybe a little bit unopportune to do some things at certain times, they've always just had a game plan and they've always stuck with it. And I actually kind of admire that about them, but at the same time, this is the finals, and sometimes you need to divert game plans a little bit in order to get that W, especially in some more matchups that we're not used to seeing.
I would like to see a little bit more willingness to trade, even when playing an aggro deck. In an aggro mirror, it suddenly isn't just about hitting face. It's about preventing your opponent from hitting your face. And that's going to require trading. That's going to require a continuous board fight until you're able to have your own board state and finally push for lethal, usually over the course of 2 or 3 turns. It usually happens very quickly up then. But a lot of those games do require back and forth trading and not a whole lot of face hitting very early on. So I would like to see maybe a little bit more of game plan deviation from these women. But ultimately, it's been fairly well played so far. You never really know what you're going to get when you have a tournament which is open to everybody. There's no qualification. It's going to be sort of a mixed bag of skill levels, which is totally fine. We want to see these women come in here and compete and improve. But we actually have 2, I think, very, very well-skilled women here who have a lot of experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of what this is going to come down to is muscle memory and just repetitions and experience. A lot of players that you talk to in Grandmasters, they go up against, like, probably for the 1000th time they're playing their Tempo Rogue versus Cyclone Mage. And it's like, well, what'd you feel about that game? It's like, well, I don't really remember it because I was kind of playing by muscle memory rather than just like thinking through my turns every single time. And that's really not a thing that you can really do in Conquest right now, just because these are kind of very unorthodox matchups. It's like no one has 1,000 reps in the Mech Paladin versus Mech Hunter matchup. So I think just experience in the game and decision-making process is, I think, what's going to decide who's going to walk away with the laptop.
Yeah, absolutely. Prior experience. If either of these ladies have competed in tournaments during the Conquest format, then that will certainly be very impactful here today as to whether they knew how to prepare for this tournament, because Specialist is the premier Hearthstone competitive format right now. So we are going to be getting into game number 1 very shortly. We're just letting these women set up as we get ready to start our finals here. And remind me again, Will, what are we playing for?
Playing for a laptop. Big old laptop. And I'm pretty sure that's it. Laptop and swag.
A Lenovo gaming laptop, yes. And I'm sure we've got some other goodies here for these ladies. But
still a laptop, though. That's a lot of money.
Top prize is quite nice.
Right. And for a 6-woman tournament, I think you can do a lot worse for a prize pool.
Absolutely. You really could. I mean, it's because Supergirl Surf Pro has been around for so long that we have such incredible sponsors. Supergirl Gamer Pro, this is only the 3rd year for it, but we've already grown so much from, I was here 2 years ago at the first event. So, it's only telling how we could be doing 2 years from now, 3 years from now, where this event really has room to grow. And certainly the players have room to grow, and the player base that we invite here has a lot of room to grow as well. So it's very exciting to see already where we've come and where the future is for women in gaming and for this event in particular.
Yeah, I think that we're about to head into the finals for this tournament.
I'm hearing
something.
rumblings in the tavern. I think we
Something's
might be
going on. Rexar. I heard a Rexar.
I heard a Garrosh. I think we're going to be seeing Mech Hunter versus Bomb Warrior in some fashion. Here you can see Revi on the left, Trojanator on the right. And we are going to get our finals underway here. All right, so it's going to be Revi on the Mech Hunter to start things off.
Hold up. Not a mech.
Not a mech.
I see secrets. I see kill command.
I got ahead of myself.
You lied to me.
There's been so much Mech Hunter today. I unintentionally deceived you. There's a difference.
Bamboozled. Led astray.
Swindled.
Hoodwinked.
Trojanator on the Bomb Warrior, we know that for sure. And from Revi, it appears to be a Secret Hunter, which is the sort of underappreciated 3rd Hunter build right now. But it's a cool one. A lot of the aggression comes from like Secret Keeper very early on, Masked Contender alongside all of these secrets that you use. And then you have Subject 9 to pull the secrets out of your deck and make the density of your deck much higher in quality. But then you have access to all of those secrets. And something that's really unique about this deck and other decks that play a lot of secrets is they're usually not terribly popular, so it's difficult for your opponent to know how to play around it. Now seeing Life Drinker and Marked Shot, it's also possible that this is maybe just a mid-range hunter that is using some secrets as sort of support packages, and that's totally fine as well.
Right.
We'll just have to find out as the game continues on, I suppose.
Well, that's kind of the nature of secrets, is they're only as they're much more powerful when you don't know what they are. And that was like way back in the day, back when like Tempo Mage and everyone was playing, it was Mirror Entity and Counterspell were the two big secrets. And it's like, well, I know it's Mirror Entity and Counterspell. They're still very good, even with that knowledge. But knowing what they are makes them much weaker. And so when you're playing something like Secret Hunter and there's just such a myriad of secrets that you just don't know about or can't afford to play around all of them simultaneously, it gets just that much more stronger. And I'll give you a pass on the whole Mech Hunter thing because there is a Ziliax. So there's one. We'll call it a Hybrid Hunter.
I mean, I judged a book by its previous books in the series that I've seen all day today.
Sometimes you pick up a sequel to a book and it's just a completely different genre, and it happens.
So Trojanator had pretty strong first couple of turns. She shuffled a few bombs into the deck, but with that snipe and the Marked Shot, Revy was able to clear the board finally. Trojanator, however, it looks like she just wants to get those bombs into the deck and prepare for Blastmaster Boom on turn 7. That's the way her hand is playing out right now. There's 3 bombs in the deck for Revy right now. If she doesn't draw any of those bombs, on turn 7, Blastmaster Boom is going to be 6 boom bots.
Ooh. It's a lot of boom bots, and statistically, that's the word. Each one deals about 2.5 damage, I believe. And there's the other Dr. Boom, so we got the pair.
That's actually
probably want to play that one first.
So stinking good. Ideally, you would, yes, because then your boom bots do all get rushed.
But speaking of good hero cards, it's your boy.
I mean, with Misdirection, Freezing Trap, and Snipe in the deck, I'm going to have to call this Secret Hunter. I don't think you see more than like a Rat Trap in a mid-range hunter or a mid-range beast hunter nowadays. So I'm thinking there's probably Secret Keepers in this deck, probably Masked Contender, probably Subject 9.
Man, remember Hunter Spellstone?
Yeah, Emerald Spellstone was insane.
Yeah, that was a good card. Imagine how many wolves would be on the board right now.
4 of them. And you would have played it for 5 mana instead of 6. So it eventually became 6.
So steady shotting your own face, unfortunately with the misdirection, but that's about the best case outcome.
So the thing about secrets in this deck is you want to use them alongside your secret supporting cards, like Secret Keeper, like Masked Contender. Right. Otherwise, by themselves, they're usually very situational.
2 damage. Right.
Yeah, 2 damage. Very, very situational. But everything that Revy plays will be replayed by Zul'jin, so she's going to get all of her secrets back. She's going to get her deadly shots activated again. Kill commands, all the spells are casted randomly, so if she plays these kill commands now, Zul'jin could potentially kill command her own face, but it's still absolutely the best card in this deck in this matchup.
A little curious right now why this Life Drinker is sticking in the hand. Is she just prioritizing the healing from it? Because that's still 3 damage and going to be sticking another minion to potentially push another 3 damage after it survives. So I think she might be tunnel visioning a little bit too much on the whole healing aspect of it, because at the end of the day, that just still pushes damage, which is what you want to be doing as the hunter.
I'm not positive. Maybe she's playing Dire Frenzy in the deck and she wants to hit the Life Drinker with Dire Frenzy, or she just wants to have a beast available to play it with. But no, without knowing exactly what's in her deck, I'm not really sure. The Dynamatic is fantastic here. Clears off the Misha.
So is Blastmaster Boom.
Well, if you have nothing to trade those boom bots into, Blastmaster Boom becomes a little bit less.
There was a Misha.
Tempting. Yeah, but you want all those bombs to kill something. You want those bombs to clear a minion, Death Rattle, clear another minion. If you leave, well, say you have 6 boom bots, and a boom bot hits the Misha, and then Death Rattles and kills the Misha. Now you have 6 minions on the board.
Sure.
What if Revy has Unleash the Hounds and can push for 6? And then Zul'jin activates Unleash the Hounds with kill command later on, and then you die. It is something to be aware of. This is traditional mid-range, like Beast Hunter is very good versus Warrior.
Right. This deck is anything but traditional so far. Been a whole lot of secrets.
Ain't that the truth?
See if there was like a, a master's call into a dire frenzy, into shuffling a 4-6, 4-7, or it would be a 5-7 Misha or Leok into the deck. That's a lot more traditional. This, not so much.
This has worked out well for Trojanator. These boombots are going to all act as removal. Freezing a boombot back to your hand is completely fine because you can just play it for 3 mana and it still has rush. She's comfortably at 30 life. Her board is strong, but not incredibly weak to Unleash the Hounds.
Pretty much. All right, Zul'jin.
Or
time.
You do have Subject Line as an option. If you want to be greedy and have a
rat
better
trap.
Zul'jin.
Explosive Trap's not terrible. The problem is, it's not Zul'jin. Sure, we're getting more secrets, but Zul'jin was going to summon Unleash the Hounds. It was going to Animal Companion. It was going to do more secrets. It was going to kill command.
But look, Zul'jin is her last ditch effort to win this game.
Sure.
If it's not the best Zul'jin that it can possibly be, it's not going to be enough. So I don't blame her for being a little bit greedy here and for wanting this Zul'jin to be incredibly powerful. And you've got Deadly Shot in there. You want that to be targeted.
Right.
You don't want that to hit a boombot necessarily. But now Trojanator's got information. She realizes this is probably a rat trap up, something that she's seen snipe before. It's not misdirection. It's not explosive trap. Well, it was explosive trap. It's not anymore.
Right.
It's not freezing trap. So she can start to narrow this down.
She has only played 1 card this turn. It was just the Boombot. Everything else has just been traced, so she can afford to play 1 more card unless she just really wants to kill the rat trap that comes out, but I don't think she does.
The rat's a 6/6. She's only got 5 armor right now, so she couldn't sealed slam it.
She doesn't have any 1-costed max to rush into it. Not even going to play the Town Crier either. Playing around the Zul'jin. Summoning more Unleash the Hounds.
Yeah, I'm playing around the rat trap primarily.
Right, that too.
We didn't see what her Discover options were, but Clockwork Automaton does work with the 3 damage Dr. Boom hero power. Turns it into 6 damage.
Does it not work with Kaboom?
It does work with Kaboom as well. Yeah, it just doubles damage by your hero power.
Classic Zul'jin biting himself.
It's pretty rude, Zul'jin.
Okay,
and now Trojanator will be able to look at Zul'jin and see all of the spells that it casted, so she will be able to see what these secrets are definitively.
I'm trying to think, so there's a misdirection, there's an explosive shot, there's a rat trap.
There's a freezing trap and a snake trap.
Did the snake trap get in there in time?
Not positive, because there was also snipe as well, so there have been more than 5
I think the snake trap was the 6th secret, so it didn't get in. I think it was the snipe. At the end of the day, 5 secrets, usually pretty powerful. In this case, not going to be that powerful at all. But sure, it kills a Dynamatic.
Just look at the resources Trojanator has access to, though. Dr. Boom Mad Genius is incredibly strong in this matchup when you do get it down on curve.
I believe the word is good.
It's good.
It's real good.
Big fan. Good card. Yeah, I mean, if this game had been Revy playing Secret Keeper on turn 1 into a series of secrets that protected it, then things maybe could have looked differently. But
Big old
she got off
Secret
to a slow
Keeper.
start. You don't want to play secrets just as they are.
Right.
Secrets are not good enough by themselves.
Here's one of the payoffs right here, one of the newer ones. Control a secret game +1/+1.
Totem Golem, essentially.
Without the overload. Fortunately, though,
Is there any way for her to find another Zul'jin? I don't believe so.
Marked Shot gets you spells. What spell is good?
I don't think
Dire
we could ever
Frenzy.
discover a hero card.
So it would have to be Mark Shot into Dire Frenzy and then put the Dire Frenzy on something insane like
Huffer.
Misha, Huffer, basically any of the animal companions. Unfortunately, Call of the Wild is no longer in standard rotation.
Good card.
Fun card.
So that snipe did connect to the militia commander here. Trojanator's going to get the news that it is freezing trap. But you got to get through these secrets somehow, so might as well do it in the cheapest way possible.
Give this militia commander a jacket. She's been freezing this entire game.
She's chilly. I should tell her to come on down to Supergirl Gamer
I
Pro.
know.
Sunny Oceanside, California.
I hear it's on the beach and the weather's wonderful.
I hear it's about 78 degrees, and there's a light breeze, but nothing too cold.
All right, Shield Slam coming down. Just getting rid of that guy. Honestly, I don't blame Trojanator at all. At this point, Revy's kind of very quickly running out of threats. I think she's deciding whether to play Town Car. I think she might have forgotten about the Rat Trap. Or maybe she just doesn't care at this point.
I think you still care. I think it's probably just that you forgot.
All right, when you have a hand this full, it's kind of like, come on, let me play stuff. I want to play stuff.
Yeah. I think it's, yeah. She was waiting for the Blast Shield to be able to... Well, she was Shield Slam already. That's okay. It's going to be some damage to face, but very likely she'll be able to recover.
Right. Fine damage. And this is kind of what you were talking about, is the secrets on their own are not bad, but now that a 6/6 is on the board, these secrets just got a lot more powerful.
Now this is a little scary. Omega Devastator, however,
you were
is
saying.
scarier. 4 mana for 10 damage, and you can clear an additional minion with it, and sometimes it survives past that.
I think it's just a matter of what Trojanator wants to do on the backside of this.
Just need to be careful about giving this Eaglehorn bow
too many
more
charges.
durability.
Right. I don't think she has any weapon destruction in the deck. No Weapons Project, no Harrison Jones, no Acidic Swamp Ooze.
If this hits the rat, she's going to take 6.
Oh.
This is sloppy from Trojanator.
Well, at least the Zilliax kills it now. You can heal up a little bit.
She doesn't know if that's Freezing Trap or not, I don't believe.
Now she doesn't know, but
yeah.
She's at 11 now.
That is, I think it's just second Rat Trap. Yeah,
it is the second Rat Trap.
She just took 8 damage that turn.
Jeez.
She's looking a little concerned.
Okay, there's one bomb.
Oh, the most fantastic dog just walked in.
That's a beautiful dog.
Wow. What you did. Okay.
He's so fluffy.
If only you could see it.
All right. Eagle Horlambo has 2 more charges. Trojanator's at 6 health. No armor gain in sight right now. I'm trying to think. Omega Assembly could potentially get the 2/2 mech that when it deals damage gains that much armor.
She's going to 13.
True.
She's putting more bombs in the deck. She has another Wrench Caliber to get Revy down to 4 next turn, which means just 1 bomb wins her the game. There's the Blast Shield.
There's a Life Drinker.
Trojanator made this harder for herself than she could have, and she was a little bit more sloppy than we'd like to see in this game, but it looks like she's still going to be able to take it. She's been very far ahead for a while.
All right, but she's going to heal up.
But I will say, I expect better. I'm going to give her a stern talking to.
After the series, of course.
Yes.
No mid-series coaching.
And if she wins, maybe we'll give her a pass. All right, Revy is now up to 10. Trojanator back down to 7, can go to 14 with Blast Shield this turn.
Very fortunate she hit the Blast Shield.
It's bound to happen. You have 5 hero powers. You can't get the same one twice in a row.
The 1 and 4.
Yeah. So 25% to switch to the one that you want it to be.
All right.
So now this is a 2-bomb breakpoint.
Soon to be a 1-bomb breakpoint. There's 1 bomb. She get the Justice Runner. Okay. If you control a secret, draw a secret.
If you control a secret, put a secret from your deck in play.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think she has any other secrets in the deck.
We've played a lot of secrets this game.
Yes. So many.
Hold up. That's not good. Master's Call draws... not sure what.
From her taking Goblin Prank, probably nothing.
Alright. Alright, Mass Contender.
She
no
is dead
secrets.
just to the Wrench Caliber.
Unfortunate.
That's going to do it. Trojanator is going to take game number 1. It was a bit of a slog fest to get there,
right.
But she's going to take game 1, and we're going to be getting that Bomb Warrior out of the way. She does not have to get another win with it. It's done its job. And usually Mech Hunter and Mid-Range Hunter have very good matchups against Warriors, but Secret Hunter is a bit of an outlier for the class. It's much more dependent on having combo synergies, I suppose, with your secrets, because the secrets by themselves are weak. So it's not like Secret Hunter used to be, where we could play the secrets just to power up the Emerald Spellstone, and then we had Deathstalker Rexar at the end of the game, for instance. You don't have that anymore. Zul'jin is good, but Zul'jin is not going to bail you out of as many situations as Deathstalker Rexar used to. So you can't use your secrets as liberally. If you have a hand that is entirely secrets, you're going to have a really hard time.
Right. I think the Secret Hunter is going to do a lot better as the series progresses, going up against stuff like the Murloc Shaman. I think it's going to shine much better there.
Yeah, I would think so.
Just because the Warrior doesn't really care about the secrets. It's like, I'm going to shuffle bombs, the bombs are going to kill you, and I don't really care if I get misdirected for 2 damage. But at the same time, Murlocs have to hit the face and have to do things.
They don't really have another choice.
You're right. That's because that's their win con. And so, just by nature of how the deck plays, they're going to be activating more secrets in, fashions that they would otherwise not want to. So Explosive Trap's going to get much better. Freezing Trap's going to get much better.
I believe the Spectator is flipped again. Trojanator does not have a Rogue, but Revi does. So it is Trojanator on the Shaman in this game, Revi on the Rogue. And this can be a tough matchup to win for the Shaman, because Rogue has so many incredible tempo cards, like Backstab with SX7 Agent and the Miscreant for all of those incredible lackeys. But Trojanator has a really good hand.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what Revi picks up in the next couple of turns, because she's like a Backstab or a Sap away from just having just the absolute best hand possible.
Yeah.
Deckhand's great.
Party would be really good.
Right, just something to activate this SI with, just because you never want to use a preparation just to get a minion down. It feels really bad. And this dagger is going to be like, that's just what rogues do on turn 2. It's really good at dealing with Murlocs. And that's kind of all that's really going on right now. It's the hand looks, it's like so close to being good, but it's just like 1 card away. Trojanator all the while is just going to be making stuff.
Yeah.
Here's a Lackey. Here's another Murph block.
Playing a board.
Here's a Tidecaller for 3.
But it's a board that's very fragile.
Right.
If there was Fan of Knives, she would have nothing to do next turn, for instance. But it looks like, if Revi wants to, she can prep out the Miscreant or prep out the SI7 Agent, just use Preparation as a 0-mana combo activator, essentially. Right. And if you haven't played Hearthstone since the buff patch and nerf patch, I suppose, that happened as well, Preparation used to discount the next spell you played by 3, and now only discounts it by 2. So
it's very
you're getting
relevant.
a little bit less out of it. This is just going to be a hero power pass.
Right.
But the Henge Clan Hag into Soul of the Murloc with Stormbringer could mean that Trojanator could be looking at a very big board.
Right.
Interesting that Revi is playing Fairy Dragon in her deck. It appears to me that she's playing a very anti-mage version of Rogue. She's got 2 Saps. She's got the really aggressive Pirate package, and Fairy Dragon is meant to be played against Mage because it can't be Ray of Frost, it can't be Frost Bolted, and it's a guaranteed bit of pressure, but also potentially an answer to like Sorcerer's Apprentice, for instance.
Right. And this is how significant the nerf to Preparation was. Traditionally, rogues of olden times were able to prep
3 months ago.
Multiple fortnights ago, when the rogues had Preparation for 3. Multiple fortnights ago.
Yeah, it's like...
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of kids playing Fortnite here, so it's probably like...
No.
100 games of Fortnite ago. I don't know. Fortnite's 2 weeks, so math it out.
This is what happens when all the Generation Z takes over, and everything's just measured in Fortnite match wins.
I'm just a dirty millennial.
But, like I was saying, the days of yore, you could Preparation a raiding party into Evil Miscreant on turn 4. That's no longer an option.
Oh my gosh, this turn is so good for Trojanator.
Very powerful.
War Leader, Soul of the Murloc.
Oh,
the board's fully clear. She's got her own 5-minion board, and she's rolling right into the Stormbringer on the next turn, which also was buffed in that patch that happened. Went from 7 mana to 6. A lot more palatable at 6 mana.
Can I say it?
Yeah.
Trojanator fans love to see that.
Oh, they do. Her boyfriend right now is very happy.
Right. All right, free Dread Corsair going. All right. Talked about this last series. Evil Miscreant's a good card, and you should play it.
You have a free Dread Corsair, an SI7 agent that can clear a minion, and get that Miscreant down. I would like to see her go wider here anyway. I think 3 minions is much more valuable than 2 minions. Plus, she just ended up trading her weapon anyway. So, I don't know. Although Trojanator might be thinking that maybe Murloc, Ward Leader, and Cold Light Seer is a better play this turn. 5 legendary minions, so good. You could trade the Hench Clan Hag and still get 5 legendary minions. Really wanted the 5 legendary minions.
I did too. It's just...
Well, she is also just
you're up against
for lethal, I suppose.
Right. I was about to say, you're up against Rogue. You have 5 minions. When's this going to get better? But it's like, you know what else is good? Killing your opponent.
Look, I play this Murloc deck for fun. I didn't put Stormbringer in the deck because it's good.
Right.
Sometimes it's okay. A lot of the time you get War Druid Lodi, and then you feel really bad about yourself.
It's happened twice already.
It has. But, man, it's so fun doing that.
Right, you're like...
If you ever get Tyrion, you're like, I'm a god. I'm the best Hearthstone player in the world, and you can't prove otherwise. Oh, wow.
That's good.
That's really good.
Kobold Lackey could potentially clear off not a whole lot because everything has 3 HP.
She's dead. Yeah, the Sap was a combo activator, but the Murloc War Leader can just be played down again.
All right, hold on. This is a puzzle that can be solved.
The phone.
Okay, so Captain Greenskin, trade into something. Comes down to kind of a 50-50 on this waggle pick. If you bounce back one of the Kobold Lackey, you potentially clear up a little bit more to live another turn. But pick is going phase.
She's consistent. That's what she's been doing the whole series. You can send out that Kobold Lackey to clear up another 1/1. And then it actually would not... with the Grimscale pickup, it would have been lethal. That's going to do it. Trojanator is going to take game number 2. She's going to go to a 2-0 lead. And she is on match point to take not only the series, but the entire tournament.
I really like the way she's been playing so far. Definitely an improvement.
That pup is so excited for her.
She's like, the bombs.
She's like, yes.
We're in the finals.
I don't know if you're aware, but we are in a tent at the much larger Supergirl Surf Pro event, which in California, speaking as a Midwesterner myself, people just have dogs and they go to the beach with them. It's just an activity here.
That's just something you do.
How wonderful. It's really very nice.
You don't take dogs to like Lake Michigan? That's not a thing?
You could. Lake Michigan beaches are not nearly as nice as that beach. That beach is made of sand.
Right.
Our beach is made of like rocks and glass and
like naturally
bad
forming
things.
Glass or like
No.
like broken bottled glass.
Bottles, yeah. It's not great. I'm sure we have nice beaches. I just
somewhere
haven't seen them.
Ugh.
But this place is great. Come on down to Supergirl Surf Pro in Oceanside, California. It's completely free to enter.
You could have showed up. Could have won a laptop.
Could have won a laptop. But now, Trojanator, with one more game win, will win a laptop.
Wait, hold on.
Revy has
Your
to
favoritism
stop
is showing.
her in her tracks.
Revy starting the reverse sweep right now.
She can totally get it done.
Yeah, I said it.
She can totally get it done. She's got a great matchup here with the Mech Hunter versus the Bomb Warrior.
She's got a great hand. Trojanator doesn't have a great hand.
That's a phenomenal hand for Revy. Or wait. Who's our spectator flipped again?
Hold up.
Yep. It's Trojanator on the Hunter.
All right. Never mind. Trojanator in 3.
That's a great hand. Okay, this is previously on Cora Talks About Mech Hunter. I was talking about Mech Hunter, and I was saying that the best way to use Galvanizer is with, like, 2 Mekaroos very early on for early tempo, or just to make your hand go a turn faster. And that's what she's doing this time around. Replicating Menace on 3, Snip Snap twice on turn 5 instead of turn 6.
I mean, at least Revy's hand is shaping up to be slightly better than it was just a moment ago. With the Militia Commander pickup, that's nice, but it can't even kill a 4/6, which is what she's facing down right now. On turn 3. A 4/6 that not only is a 4/6, but makes 1/1s even after you're able to kill it.
And those 1/1s aren't particularly threatening by themselves, but thinking, you know, if one of those two leftmost cards in Trojanator's hand are War Gear, then she can immediately magnetize those onto those 1/1s.
Right. Now, I believe Revy, when we watched her earlier play this list, she's the one who's running a copy of Spellbreaker.
I believe so, yes.
So that is going to likely come into play. Hopefully it comes into play because it's a very crucial card in the matchup, being able to silence magnetized mechs. But the way this game's shaping up right now, it looking like she might just die before that happens. She's trying to set up like a Warpath turn right now by clearing off stuff, but she's just taking so much damage in the meantime, and this is not even going to be a true clear.
I mean, this is still an okay Warpath turn, though. Warpath twice, you leave a 3/1 on the board. However, like I was saying, Trojanator with that Snip Snap being discounted can Snip Snap twice onto the Ursatron for 5 mana instead of 6, but then you're playing very heavily into Spellbreaker. So you gotta weigh your options. Maybe you split the Snip Snap up. Maybe you don't play the Snip Snap at all.
I was going to say, I wouldn't hate just playing Omega Devastator here. Just create a 4/5. There's no apparently obvious trades from your opponent's side because it's a 4/1 and a 3/3. So they have to have another magnetic minion in order to get a good trade-off. And then you also get an Omega Assembly, which could potentially find another card that could potentially get you out of the situation. Like, I just think Warpath is just such a good card. I think using it just to clear off essentially one minion, I didn't like.
Using it on an odd mana turn always feels really bad.
Right.
So Trojanator did just put both Snip Snaps onto the Ursatron and go face. This would have been very weak to the Spellbreaker, but it pushes 2 more damage immediately, and I think she's thinking probably that she has enough follow-up that even if Spellbreaker were to come out, she'd be able to connect for another 3 with Ursatron, maybe magnetize the missile launcher onto it. It's a risk she's willing to take here. And how is Revy supposed to respond to this? She has that Militia Commander, but it can't clear this. She can't brawl with anything. She's going to have to take 7 again.
And this is kind of what I was talking about. She Warpath on an odd number turn, which means she floated a mana, which means she could have played Omega Assembly last turn.
Yeah.
And potentially off the Omega Assembly could have found something like a Sephorium Bomber or a Clockwork Goblin or even a Zilliax. And so if she was able to shuffle a bomb into the deck this turn, next turn she would have played a Dr. Boom, which would have summoned 2 Boombots, which potentially could do something to get her back in the state where she could potentially mount a comeback. But now, no bombs. The Omega Assembly's just in your hand doing a whole lot of nothing. The Eternium Rover's a nice pickup if it had Rush and you had a bunch of stuff you could add to it. But it's doing a whole lot of nothing right now.
So this Explodinator from Trojanator makes Brawl a viable game plan for Revy, trying to clear the board. But remember that Ursatron has been magnetized with a Replicating Menace, so it has 3 Microbots.
Correct.
When it death rattles. Not to mention the Goblin Bombs will deal 4 damage when they die. So this is looking like, regardless of what happens here for Revy, Trojanator will have minions on the board when this turn is over. And then she has a Missile Launcher in hand.
Also Bomb Toss, which can go face.
It can.
And a Spider Bomb, which is just another 2 damage potentially. So one of the bombs live, which is I think one of the better outcomes because you lose the minions, but they're not pushing 2 more damage. But Warrior picked up is just lethal.
Oh, my apologies. It wasn't Replicating Menace. It was the double Snip Snap. But yeah, Warrior picked up. That's 7 damage plus the 4 on board is exactly 11. And that's going to do it. Trojanator with a 3-0 sweep over Revy is going to take this series, and she's going to take the tournament. Congratulations to Trojanator. She is your Supergirl Gamer Pro Hearthstone champion for 2019. Very well played by her. Yeah, it was a bit of a one-sided affair there in that final match, but I think Revy really held her own in her previous series. And sometimes you don't get what you need, and the matchups don't go your way, and that's unfortunate, but that's Hearthstone at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But she did a really great job. She should be very proud.
And to clarify, when we say it was kind of one-sided at the end there, that was at no fault of Revy's.
Oh, like, no. There really was not much that was just done in that previous game.
The perfect starting hand for the Hunter in an already favored matchup against well, I can only describe it as probably one of the worst hands you could have.
C or D tier Bomb Warrior hand. It just wasn't going to cut it. Against a Galvanizer discounting a curve that worked that smoothly together, things are suddenly moving a lot faster for the Hunter, and the Warrior does not have the time or the mana to answer those boards. So it was nothing that Revy could have done there. It was just that Trojanator got what she needed. She played quite a few games with the Mech Hunter over the course of her 3 series, and I think that was the only time we saw the deck draw that well.
Right.
So you can see it's not always going to be like that, but when it is,
yeah,
payoff.
Sometimes you get the Galvanizer opener and you just flood the board perfectly on curve, and sometimes your opening hand is War Gear, Replicating Menace, and you're like, well, I guess I'm just gonna chill for the next couple of turns, and hopefully one of these sticks, and maybe I'm not dead by that point, but probably not.
Ideally, but you never, ever know. But we are going to take a short break just to get our prize ceremony ready. When we return, we are going to crown our winners, so don't go anywhere. We are going to see who is taking home that medal, that laptop. We're going to see the ceremony right after this.
The future waits for no one, so we refuse to wait for it. We're not just pilots and engineers, we are pioneers. Today, battles are waged in nanoseconds, and planes are piloted from the other side of the world. We turn night into day, and fly missions in space. The future's not coming, it's already here. This is the future. Join us and be the future.
The National Championship Series is in full swing, providing high prize pools, a unique point system, multiple tiers, and fair gameplay to all who participate.
This is taking esports to a whole new level.
Anybody from any background, any social status, any competitive level can join and feel like they're the part of the community.
Prize pools reaching upwards of $25,000, a leaderboard, and a long list of perks. Competing in the NCS is where you want to be.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to day 2 of Supergirl Gamer Pro here in beautiful, sunny Oceanside, California. I am your host, Abby Sherlock, aka Sherlock Homie. And we just finished our Hearthstone tournament, and I am here with our second and first place winners. How are y'all feeling right now?
Great, actually. Yeah, amazing. Really good, yeah.
So the game was super exciting, and y'all did a couple of different series. What was your favorite moment from playing Hearthstone today?
Honestly, it's winning the series that went to 5. I definitely thought that I was probably favored, but especially with the games where I lost to back-to-back bombs to my face where I had lethal on board. That was the most memorable for sure.
Yeah, that actually what you were saying. I was in the audience when the 2 bombs happened, and I was like, no, she got robbed. But also, my last match before Trojanator, the back and forth with the Pally, and I think it was the Mech Hunter I was facing, and just going back and forth for a while. That was pretty intense.
I'm curious to hear, how long have y'all been playing Blizzard games or Hearthstone?
So I've actually been playing on and off since beta, so before release. Used to play a lot more, and now we've tapered off a bit, but I've been playing Blizzard games since I was probably like 16 years old.
I've been playing Hearthstone since 2016, so somewhat recent, but I got a few years under my belt, so.
Wow. Y'all, it was an amazing match, and you know what? To celebrate them, we are going to give away some prizes. So to Revi, our second place, we have a backpack by Lenovo and Rockcat. Mousepad and keyboard. Woo, woo, woo. And then, for our winner, please bow forward to be deigned with your prize. There we go. Woo! Trojanator will also be getting a Lenovo Legion laptop and also a backpack with a mousepad from Rockcat. So, what a great tournament. Amazing. We love Hearthstone. But before y'all leave, can you do a really quick Murloc impersonation for me before you leave? Are we ready?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Can you do it? Are we gonna do it? We have to. We're the Murlocs. We just watched Hearthstone. Are you ready? I need to hear this because you just celebrated. You just won a free Rockcat keyboard. You ready? Let's go.
1 second.
And that's the sound of a winner at Supergirl Gamer Pro. Awesome. Thank you all so much. We will be back after a short commercial break for our CSGO Pro tournament. Let's get ready, y'all.